cold, cloudy morning, and my allergies. I feel like I'm very stuffed up.
Yeah. Yeah, you kind of sound stuffy. Yeah, it was stormy here last night. Wind and it was like our first decent rainstorm since I don't know, for a while.
I was hoping the
So
tea would help, but I don't think it's loosening things up like I was hoping for.
I super want that. I want them to come out with I'd like the throne and the table, Skeletor's throne and Skeletor's table. I just settle for the throne. I really
Skeletor's
want that
table?
throne. Skeletor. So it's like a table. It's from the cartoon. It's like the table with the kind of dome ball in the middle of it, like the
Okay,
crystal
gotcha.
ball in the middle. And that, as far as I can tell, those two accessories have only ever come with the Super 7 Snake Mountain.
Snake Mountain.
And so, like, if you want to buy Skeletor's throne, like, there's like fake 3D printed versions that you can get for cheaper. But like, if you want to buy that from somebody who bought Snake Mountain, it's like $300 for the table and the throne, which is a little bit more than I want to spend for a cool accessory.
Yeah.
I
Since
bet you
we're
give it another 6 months and you'll see a Snake Mountain that matches your new Grayskull.
I don't care about Snake Mountain. I just want the throne.
I know, but
I take the table
you
too.
probably get the throne from the new Snake Mountain for cheaper.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, I bought Castle Grayskull for cheap. I could have bought Castle Grayskull on the secondary market from resellers charging twice MSRP for less than it cost to get that throne from somebody because it was so expensive to buy that Snake Mountain set.
Did you? By the way, I added an image to the chat in Discord, but I can also add it to the one for
No,
Messenger if that's
Put the
easier.
Discord right in front of me. I mean,
Okay, cool.
personally, I have the Discord right in front of me.
Yeah, I do too.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that looks like it.
Yeah, and like that looks pretty good.
Yeah.
So one of the things that wasn't in the announcement that I saw because of I've been watching the Mega Construct stuff because I've been following that line is they do have a Mega Construct Snake Mountain coming as well, and I'm just like, well played.
Super excite.
But there is, if they do, I mean, I can see them doing it a Snake Mountain in the Origins line, but to Kit's point, they need to do the Slime Pit.
Yes.
That is an easy play function. You sell some slime. It's such a like that's the thing too is like looking back at the older toys that we used to play with like the GI Joe stuff. Like, oh, you have to assemble it yourself. Like, oh, okay, I was fine with that. And it's like if that's the case, you can give me stuff to assemble. I'm an adult collector. That's what if and the majority of people who are collecting this are, I feel. But then they still to keep it to. But then even if there's kids, they usually have an adult to help them assemble it. So do it.
Hello, welcome to Carbon Scoring is back, and we're going to talk about some carbon scoring. Hey, Kit.
Hi, Andy. Hey,
Hi,
everybody.
Ken.
By the power of Grayskull, I'm here.
One of us has the power of the Force, and the other has the power of Grayskull. I'm kind of here. I don't know why I feel kind of like stuffy in my head today, but we're here. We're all here.
I mean, it's temperature changes outside. Like
I
I'm
think
looking
the
outside.
fall has arrived, and with
Yeah.
it, the fall allergies have arrived, and my body needs to adjust. I don't know about you, but I do have those seasonal situations. Okay, I think that Kit has a point. We didn't talk about the Bad Batch for like 3 months, and it's been over. But we need to.
There's a lot to process. Like
There was
everything that happened. It's like,
Was there?
yeah.
I think there was. I mean, I guess the most lasting effect is that the Kaminoans are basically gone, right?
For most intents and purposes, which I think that's the right way to say it. Intents and purposes.
Intent.
I always grew up thinking it was in intensive
Spoilers.
purposes. Yeah.
Oh.
We're gonna be
Oh,
discussing Bad Batch. So if you haven't watched it and you don't want to get spoiled, stop
Too
now
late.
and come
I
back.
already blew it.
I mean, the
Already blew
Kaminoans
it.
are gone as far as like a an active facility. I mean, there are
Yeah.
still Kaminoans.
It sounds a little bit like maybe it's tied into the Mandalorian in a way, right? Because they kept the doctor that was really good at cloning things.
They
And they
confirmed, yeah.
shuffled-
They essentially they tied it together. They made that connection for us.
They shuffled her off.
Who is that? Is that which one is that? Is that Lama Su?
I believe so.
Sounds right. It was not the administrator.
No, he's
cold-
yeah, no,
they cold
he's the
murdered.
administrator.
Oh, Lama
Yeah.
Su is the administrator. Okay, well while Kit
Yeah.
looks up, it
Nala Su.
how Nala Su. Okay.
Not Lasu. Okay.
How far do you think this goes?
I'm sorry, Nala Se.
Nala
Sorry about
Stay?
that.
Not Lasu. Okay.
Nala
Nala
Se.
Say.
S-E.
Nala Say. It's been a little
Yeah.
while. It's okay to forget these things. And it does.
We can-
It's unclear how important she is. If that's a throwaway reference of like, and this one Kaminoan that's good at cloning is gonna teach, Palpatine and all these other people about cloning, or if it's gonna be more directly connected to Mandalorian and to the later trilogy, the newer trilogy, I guess.
I mean, I don't
Seemed
think
very ominous when she
Doesn't
showed
it?
up at the very end when she showed up, and yeah, very much a prisoner. I would not. I would. It wouldn't surprise me if we found out that she was like tortured to death later,
Yeah.
like in season 2. So
Okay.
I can see something more like a. I was gonna say Krennic, but that's not his name. The Erso's Galen Erso, where she's
Oh.
like, "Oh yes, I'm definitely working for you. I'm not at all, plotting against you. Omega, get him!" Like that'll be her Jyn Erso will be Omega.
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 Omega. For about 5 minutes, I thought Omega might be Mon Mothma, and then I was like, no, she's got a backstory. It's not. It's not possible.
yeah, no, Mon Mothma's a senator in Revenge.
she's
of the
already a
Sith. Well, it's
senator
a
by
deleted
the
scene,
time-
but she's a senator in Revenge of the Sith. Yeah.
Yeah, she's already around. I remembered that from Rogue One. She was already in, like, she's already grown up, and it'd be like, well, that'd be too fast for her to be. But yeah, I think we should just take the series as a whole, because there's a lot of individually great episodes, and some individually like, okay, I mean, that happened. It was kind of more like a Clone Wars style filler, not filler. I hate saying the word filler with
Yeah.
Filoni, because
It's a continuation.
a lot of the
side
time,
story.
well, so like a lot of the time stuff that you would consider filler, right? Like the Mraz sisters. He's gonna bring it back
Everything
later.
with the bounty hunter lady.
Everything
The
with bounty
the
hunter
woman
Sand?
who owned the bar. Yeah.
Oh
No. The woman who owned the bar that they worked for.
You mean
almost all of
Rita
that.
Perlman? Rita Perlman?
Yeah,
You're-
Rita Perlman.
Almost that entire sub story, like 90% of that, to me, literally felt like. How many episodes? I'm gonna say like 14, 15 episodes, something like that.
16.
That they 16. Okay, like they wrote 10, and then they were told like, oh no, we need some more, and then they had to come up with extra stuff to stretch it out. So they were like, all right, well, we'll make this character, and she can send them on missions that are not immediately apparent to Kit why they are necessary to the overall plot, and we will stretch our 10 episodes into 16.
I mean,
Yeah, they just
Not
stretch
that I,
the plot
not that
out
I
a little
didn't,
bit.
not that I didn't think that they. It's not like I'm mad about it or thought that they were completely pointless or anything. It just those specific story threads definitely felt like they were not as interconnected to the main plot as the rest of the series in general.
Okay.
I can see that, but I can also
Yeah, go for it.
no. I was gonna say I can also hope that at some point, I mean, we could also have a moment where, let's considering the timeline, Obi-Wan has to like, oh, I've got to recover this. You know what? I had a contact during the Clone Wars who was pretty discreet. Let me go talk to Carla at Cheers. I mean, Sid at her bar, and she
Is
can.
that actually who voices her?
Yeah, it's Carla.
Oh, it is? Okay.
It's Rhea Perlman.
I did
Yeah,
not
so-
realize that. I knew who you were talking about because of the voice, but I didn't
Yeah.
realize that it was actually that voice actress. Okay.
Yeah, so it's like it was her, and I'm like, I love it, and I'm like, okay, no, I can see that. Also, I love that it's a Trandoshan who's like, oh, it gives.
I love
us
that it's a huge Trandoshan. That's like, they're always like tall,
see.
skinny bounty hunters.
yeah. She's thick. She's like
See,
she's
maybe
the
that's
Amanda
part of it.
Waller of
Maybe
There
that's
you
part
go.
of it because I really don't like the Trandoshans.
Oh, we've
That's fair
talked
too.
about your disposition towards
Yeah.
Trandoshans
Bosk,
before.
Bosk in particular, and like just sort of a whole species that's kind of like predators, but also kind of slaves runners. So I'm
Well,
just
it's
sort
okay
of
because they're
against
eventually going to write
them.
slaving out of Star Wars entirely. So,
I mean,
Well,
any,
I mean,
any triggers for
with
anybody
Anakin,
about
that's going to
the,
be hard. That's going to be hard with Anakin's story. I mean, I can't see them getting rid of the prequels.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm perfectly happy if they stop doing that going forward, because that's not one of my favorite. I mean, it's okay.
slaving.
I
is
understand
not your
that
favorite.
you can.
Got it.
Well, right, but I mean, like, I don't particularly. So, like the Zygarians, is that what they're called? Like the wolf-looking people in
Yeah.
the Clone Wars. There was the story arc where Anakin
they do it in Bad
was
Batch.
like, okay, so yeah, so that's not my favorite storytelling technique. I understand that it's a really good way to show who's evil and like give people set people up as bad guys. And I guess it is actually really effective as a heal technique if it makes me just like psychotically angry at Trandoshans every time I see them, and even when they're not slavers. So I guess thinking back on that probably is like an effective technique. But it's because of that, I would prefer if they didn't necessarily do it as much. But I guess now that I'm talking about it, I guess it is an effective way of doing that. So although
Quickly
I
building
really
that lore.
I want them in movies or in cartoons to incorporate the scene. I think it's from the new canon comics. It might be from the Dark Horse times, but I think it's from the new canon comics where it's like I think it's one of the Vader comics where they have a scene where Vader is talking to. This is after Revenge of the Sith, like during the Dark Times, and he's talking to Palpatine, and Palpatine's using slave labor. And
To build the
Vader's
Death Star,
like,
or just like anywhere.
just in general, whenever it's to his advantage in the Empire. And
Sure.
Vader's like, I'm really not okay with this. Like, why are we doing this? I thought we were gonna stop this. And Palpatine uses his slick tongue to kind of, smooth things over and sort of at least silence him temporarily and like kind of be like, well, we'll take care of it, but for right now it's really important, so we got to keep doing it.
Let's put a pin in that. Let's put a pin in that. Okay,
Right,
buddy?
exactly.
We'll come back.
And I really like that scene, and I would love it if they could basically take that scene and adapt it into Bad Batch, because it would fit so well. Or, any movie or comics, because I feel like that is a very important. And I guess they haven't really had the same overt post Revenge of the Sith slave use in the, like, in Bad Batch. They don't go and like, no, I guess in Rebels they show the Wookiees.
Yeah.
So
in the
yeah,
last,
I would like them to do that.
the Star Wars most recent one, the movie.
Bad Batch.
No, the
No,
most
Rise of
film,
Skywalker.
Rise of Skywalker. They left out, that he enslaves that entire planet to build his new fleet for the first or the final order or whatever.
Exegol.
Just
Yeah.
Exegol. The entire planet is
Yeah.
enslaved. So it's like they want to not confront the massive needs of labor that these giant empire spanning projects would take, and the actual, even if you were paid slave labor that it would take to create them, indentured servitude labor, whatever you want to call it.
I like that.
But they don't have like a federation or any other thing that stands out and is like, this is really bad, and galaxy wide this is not allowed. Because most of the time in Star Wars it's like, well, really the stories in Star Wars take place on the fringe, and we want to tell stories about like how weapons runners are bad and how these people are bad, and we tell them on the fringe. Well, on the fringe there's no rules, and so like this fine line of like, well, we have to tell real stories the way they would have to happen, but also like we don't want to confront the terrible nature of how these things in a galaxy this big would be created. It's kind of a weird, and then you end up with strange things like, well, Boba Fett's ship was never technically Slave One, so we'll just take the name away.
Well, yeah, it was never called that in canon, so like we can just be like, oh, it's the fire spray
In current canon.
It's the model. No, I mean yeah, that's true. Yeah,
I'm actually totally okay with that.
I don't care. It doesn't
especially
call
okay,
it the fire spray.
especially
It's
if you're gonna
it's a great name for a ship.
Right. I'm saying I'm okay with them taking away the name Slave One, especially if
too.
you're going to have
I
a
wanna
TV show
be-
called The Book of Boba Fett coming out this Christmas.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I want to be very clear that I am absolutely fine with renaming the ship. It does not bother me one way. And if they can re-release it because they got a new name and I can get another shot at a UCS fire spray, I'll take it. Like, it sounds good to me. You know what I mean? Like, it's just...
Yeah.
It's a cooler name for a ship, although a lot of people that grew up with it being Slave One, you know, the more academic argument is like, well, I mean, he was kind of involved in that type of work, you know, in the old canon. So I wonder what they'll do in the new canon now that they've said that this doesn't exist, and in multiple places now in the series, like, you know, it's kind of been alluded to that they're trying to get rid of some of this hierarchy in terms of labor. I don't know. It's odd. It's odd
But
it's odd to live in the shift.
I would also like to address the fact that now with the Kaminoans, we have had in the new canon, we have had the Geonosians exterminated after they got done working on the Death Star, and now we have had the Kaminoans exterminated after they were working on the cloning. And like it's
so it's fine. We can't have slaves. That's immoral. But let's firebomb entire races of people.
I mean,
it's dark.
Yeah,
it really is. Star Wars, while it is, they're trying, you know, with like Galaxy's Edge and stuff. Bad Batch here is not really for kids. It really leans into some of the darker tendencies. I mean, it's heading into the dark times, quote unquote. I mean, literally what they called some of those comics eras, right?
Yeah.
Stuff, dark times. It's heading into that era, and the hopeful nature of Star Wars is kind of filtering out a little bit. Omega's still there, but even by the end of this show, she's not the light she was at the beginning.
yeah. I mean, but that's it. To also to touch on the Boba stuff, because it's like right now our focus is on two different time frames. It is before New Hope and then after Return of the Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have two very specific focuses. And yes, it is like kind of going from a darker time, from a lighter time into the darkness with Bad Batch, and then we have the other side of it with the Boba stuff. Them changing the name is also part of like, oh, we're kind of selling him as an anti-hero now. Like we're changing up his role. Like we've seen that people do still love Boba, so we kind of need to like, okay, how much of a bad guy is he? And we treat him as more of an anti-hero, like, okay, like a Venom, like this, oh, you know, that's a bad guy. Oh, well, people really buy a lot of his stuff, so let's see if we can clean him up a little bit. Like that's the kind of situation I feel with Boba. And then
I have wanted for years for them to do, like, you know, the Western Unforgiven, the Clint Eastwood Western from like the early 90s. I have wanted them to do a story like that with Boba Fett. When they said that, like, I don't know, whatever, 8 years ago, when they announced the movies and Boba Fett was going to be a movie instead of a show, my first thought was like, man, I hope that because obviously Disney's not going to make a movie about a bad guy. Although at the time I thought that. Now that they've made two Maleficent movies and a Cruella de Vil movie and probably who knows how many others.
Have you seen that Cruella de Vil movie?
That's hard for me to believe. I have not.
Okay.
But as soon as they announced that, I was like, I want an Unforgiven movie. I want old Boba Fett who's crawled out of the Sarlacc, and I want him to, at some point, for whatever reason, have realized the error of his ways, and for him to come out of retirement. For him to be confronted with some really bad guys who are doing something that aggravates him, and for him to come out of retirement and go do something cool one last time.
Is he a Moody? I don't know if he's a Moody. He seems more.
I think. Well, I don't know what he's going to be now,
maybe.
but at the time, that was exactly what I felt like. If you were going to make a Boba Fett centric movie, that was exactly the way that I thought
You
that they should
wanted
do it.
you wanted Unforgiven the movie with Boba Fett. Yeah.
Yes,
I could see
exactly.
that. Now is that he's a show, I don't know if they can full Moody him, because by the end of that movie, I don't know.
Oh, I don't think that they're
you
going to
know.
do that now. I don't think that that's the way that Robert Rodriguez is going to go with it. But
Yeah, is he directing that
although,
whole show?
I'm not sure. He might just be like a
Curious.
showrunner and direct some
Okay.
of them, but I know that he's involved.
Yeah.
in
Well,
it.
he was the one
Um,
that directed that episode where Boba basically is
Yeah.
back. Yeah.
But I do hope that we get a flashback where he climbs out of the Sarlacc. That would be cool. I hope that Robert, if you're listening, I hope that we get that in.
I would really like a very good
Book of Boba.
explanation in Book of Boba for how he lost his armor. Because that one to me is very difficult out of not having the old book canon and all that sort of stuff of like, Dengar found him and he sold off his armor. Like all that sort of stuff is not existent currently. It is gone. So, they've added in these things like Timothy Oliphant gets to wear his armor around for a day. And
That part though, the Timothy Elephant, great, I can't remember his name, but he got the armor from
Jawas, he said.
Jawas. Yeah,
Yes, I know. But I want to
That's
know
right,
how
it's in the show.
it's in the show. But it's
also in Aftermath. That's where it.
yeah,
Cobb.
Cobb.
Vanth, thank you.
Yeah, Cobb Vanth. Good pull there, Kit.
But it's covered in the Aftermath novels, and so
Oh, it
there's
is?
only a little bit.
They tell you
him-
exactly, or just what?
They essentially tell you how he got the armor.
They tell you Cobb got it. How Cobb got
how
it.
Cobb got it,
Yeah,
not
yeah, no.
how the Jawas got it.
Not
so.
how the Jawas. That's the section of time that I think Kit, will get over a season of Boba Fett and understanding why Boba Fett is now a crime lord, I guess, or maybe not a crime lord. I wonder with the creation of the Mandalorian if what they're saying about this time after Return of the Jedi is that some of these people that would make different moral choices, like any Mandalorian out there, might be a bounty hunter, right? And his entire enclave at the beginning of that show, we're off topic and we should talk about Bad Batch, but like his enclave at the beginning of that show would have made different moral choices than he ends up making by the end of season 2 of that. And so a Boba Fett might be also inclined to say, well, I can make different choices now. I don't have to work for the Empire, Bad Batch.
By
I
the
really
way,
what?
I think we covered, as far as what we covered, we only covered the first 3 episodes.
Yeah, it was early.
And because I don't think we had the episode where we first get Fennec Shand. So it's like I'm looking back at the episode guide and just like seeing what there was. I'm like, yeah, I think we left off there. So there's a lot for us to kind of like touch base on.
Yeah, we got Blue Bounty Hunter Boy. We got
Blue Bounty Hunter Boy.
Yeah, I don't remember that. You're gonna have to remind me.
He's a little less vague.
Bounty
We
Hunter Boy.
we already gave the spoiler warning.
Oh yeah, that's true. We did give the spoiler warning. With the Cade, whatever, with his hat.
Oh,
Cad Bane.
Cad
Bane.
Bane. Yeah, Cad Bane.
Yeah, I
You're
forgot he was
thinking
blue for a second.
Cade Skywalker. That's
But yeah, Cad Bane. Yeah.
Cad Bane.
Yeah.
Fennec Shand, Harrison Dula,
Yes.
the Mraz sisters, some new clone commanders who fit in somehow.
Commandos.
old-
Yes. The Commandos.
Oh, the Commandos. I was
Yeah.
thinking of like Hauser and some other people
yeah.
that showed up that they gave names to and they clearly might use again. Yes, clone commandos from the games being like, hey, what's up?
Yeah.
I'm
Commandos.
so excited about that. I love
It's-
I love that game and those books.
I'm really happy that that's like teetering on canon. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Um,
Like I'm sure we'll get some like I'm not sure, but I hope we get some kind of like, oh yeah, this is our new adaptation. It's very like it's right on the edge. Like this is the same stories but just updated a little bit. I'm like, give them to me.
I mean, if Respawn came
Yeah.
out tomorrow and was like, we remade Republic Commando, I'd be like, and it's canon. Okay,
Yeah.
let's do it.
Well, it's not canon,
Gosh.
but they've remade. They
You
They did just-
remastered.
remastered the game on at least Switch and probably
Yeah.
PlayStation and
Yeah, the remaster is
Xbox too.
I mean,
It's
it's a light polish. It's not
it's-
like they're not like going
yeah.
back in there and like really clean. Like it's just like,
Yeah,
oh yeah,
it wasn't
it's
clean.
playable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've
was
been
like,
playing it
hey,
on Switch and enjoying it.
I wonder how many of those games that they took. A lot of people are probably just paying GOG for the work they did to put them on their store. I would imagine, and then translating that stuff over to things like the Switch. I would have to imagine that's what's going on, because a lot of that is hard work that people can't afford to do.
And thank you to the men and women doing that, because being able to play Pod Racer and Republic Commando in my bedroom on my Switch is fantastic. It is a dream come true. Thank you.
Yeah, it's thankful work now. It used to be thankless work,
Yes.
but now Kit and Ken are saying thank you. Mraz sisters, a lot of clone troopers and some twists and turns there at the end of who's a good guy and who's a bad guy and what choices they're making, right?
Yeah, that was the biggest thing that
Yeah.
in the end was like a question mark for me. I'm like, so you just didn't want to answer that at all? You just want to just scoot right past that big revelation and just get us through the rest of the season? Fine by me, I guess.
Yeah.
That was. Yeah.
You want to start with that, or you guys want to start with some favorite moments, or just I figure we're just talking about the series as a whole and what maybe our hopes are or what our thoughts are for the future of what that is, because it doesn't. Mandalorian seems to have a thesis statement, or it did until the end of season 2. It seems to still have a little bit of one about what they're trying to bring people in to watch. Right? Here's the Western. Here's the story of what it's like to live in the galaxy post the Empire. This one is like, maybe it's about things that are happening around them sometimes, like Hera and her storyline. So is the Bad Batch in the future going to be about stuff happening around them? Or is it more like the end of the series where it's about what's happening to them and they're the cause of a lot of things, like the beginning of the rebellion, you know?
I mean, I think
or
it can be both.
yeah.
I mean, and I think that's finding that balance is a good part, because I loved the Hera episodes, because if we're gonna start, I'll just jump back to stuff that I loved. I love the Hera episodes because, one, we did get to see Hera and the people of Ryloth and seeing what their world is turning into under the Empire. But you also get to see, not only do you see how the people of that planet are reacting to it, and how it's shifted from, at first they didn't even want the clones there. They're like, we don't need you. And then, okay, you know what, fine, you guys have helped out. Please, come and help us, and we'll form a bond. And then even to how the clones that were stationed there, how they are taking that transition too. And so we also see a little bit of how the Order 66 is essentially sliding, like it's slowly decreasing, I guess, or because they since we saw it as a signal that they pushed through on Crosshair in the very beginning. They're like, oh well, let's turn it up to see if we can push his chip into full on mode, because it was before, it's like, oh, it's there, but it's a weak signal, so they turned it all the way up to get that Order 66 up. And you see that Commander Hauser, yeah. He was just like, he's like, this isn't right. Like, we're here to help them, and now we're subjugating them. That's not the right thing to do. And like, seeing that turn for the clones and see what the turmoil that the clones are going through, what the people are going through, what the troopers who are under Crosshair, to see them be like, well, this is the Empire. This is what we're supposed to do. This is what's right. It's like, that's because you're the one doing it. Like, you don't care that it's subjugation. You don't care about any of this because it's not your people. And how easily some people just will fall in line with, fascism. And they're just like, oh no, this is fine. Like, no, like, I think it's, I like all the multifaceted aspect of it, of seeing that. And then there's also the episodes where there's like, oh, we need to go get all of our chips removed. And Rex shows up to be like, hey guys, got to get those chips out. Let's go do this. And they have a little adventure on a star. I guess it wouldn't be a Star Destroyer. Star Cruiser.
Venerator?
Yeah.
I think it was a Venerator.
Yeah. And it's like, so that was like, I enjoyed, I like all the bits and pieces as they come together. So that Hera, the Hera 2-parter was one of my favorites.
I loved that it was a 2-parter, man.
Yeah.
It was so good. No, a Venerator would be a Star Destroyer. No, Venerator. Yeah. They still Star Destroyers.
Are they
Jedi
still Star
cruisers.
Destroyers?
Yeah, they're still
Okay.
technically Star Destroyers, but I guess it's a Venerator probably.
Yeah, just different class. Okay.
Yeah.
I just didn't know if they changed his name. Like we were from Star Destroyers. Like, no, we're here for peace. We're here for no, we're here to destroy stars. Period. We're here for that.
I saw a video. I don't know if I don't know. I'm not gonna find it right now, but I saw a fun video of like how much bigger the Executioner is than like a regular Star Destroyer, and how much bigger the Death Star. It was a 3D models thing, and it starts with it was like a capsule, like an Apollo capsule, and it just keeps going, you know, like through everything that you could possibly ever have created in any space related story. So it's got like the Galactica in there and a whole bunch of the Galactica is pretty big. I could probably take a Star Destroyer pretty easily. Just like to point that out
definitely
there.
believe it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Although it doesn't
considering you
have
have
shields, which is a problem.
true, but it has two. The launch base have to like open up. Like that's massive. Like you essentially have to move these two small cities to the sides to shoot.
I get the concept behind that, but I've never quite understood like why in space you need to do that. Like I get like, oh, we can close it up and then it's armored and then it's closed for our jump and we have to close it for our jump. But like if you just it's space, so you just rotate the ship and like, okay, put the armored side that way. And then the ships go off the bottom, so you just open up the bottom side. You know, like,
Well, I mean,
it doesn't have to be that way.
by the time they got to the Pegasus, they didn't even have to open up. They just
That's
were,
true. Yeah,
Their
the
bays were
Pegasus
already
doesn't- the bays
Yeah.
are always out on the Pegasus, and
Yeah.
the conceit is that they land like a aircraft carrier. They slam down the deck, and that's why they need the space. So,
Yeah.
I get why they did. It's very aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, it's more of a storytelling conceit too for them, so that they're like,
Yeah,
get them back in here. We gotta launch, and then
Oh, it's great.
shoot.
it's a fantastic convention that once you stick to it creates great storylines. But like, if you think about it, you're like, this could be better designed. And then they were like, yeah, it could have been, and that's why we have the Pegasus to show you they did it eventually. But like our ship that we use has this bad design, and you just have to live with it. It's so good. Versus the Star Wars way is kind of interesting with the TIE fighters are always like up and down, and they just get grabbed by the head of the ball. You know,
Depending on
There's
the
never
ship, yeah.
Yeah.
There's also the ones that
always-
just like have the pods just hanging off the bottom too.
every ship can kind of just, even X-wings can just sort of touch down. It's a cool idea. I wonder, we should see a ship eventually in Star Wars that just can't do it. It just has to land normally. Like, where you got that has wheels, or like, I need to land on a road. I got wheels on this thing.
It's my
That design on Moff Gideon's ship is terrible. It's talking about bad designs where the ship
which
has
one?
to like fly out the. So he's got one that's
Oh.
kind of arrowhead shaped, but it's got the gap at the very front,
Yes.
and the ships like have to fly out the gap. So like the way that they
Yeah.
stop them is they just fly into that gap, and then they can't launch any ships. And so like I'm like
That's
that's a
the,
terrible, like that's an awful design.
It's a light. I can't remember the light cruiser, but it's a type of light cruiser. But it's the same problem the Tiger Claw has from Wing Commander, where they shoot out the middle of the ship and they have one break down in the launch tube on the way out, and it's like, well, that's it. We can't get any more help to you. You five that made it out. Hold on, my dog is barking.
Yeah, that was a bad
Chelsea.
engineering decision.
Yeah. I mean, it. Yeah, I'm trying to think of the when you said the Gideon ship. Like, wait, which one? I'm like, oh yeah, that big one where they have just one X-wing. We're saved. Like, yes, you are. Because I mean, and we're jumping all over the place because we also at some point today want to talk about the second season of Mandalorian episode 2, Gallery.
Oh
where
yeah,
they,
but
they go through the breakdowns. But yeah.
yeah, we could do. I mean, that's not a super long one, but let's, I know
Keep on Bad Batch.
Your Hera thought was that was your favorite of the whole season, just because you got to see Ryloth and Hera's story beginning, or I mean, it was pretty fantastic to live through. Like, oh man, these people are before the Rebels show. That's kind of crazy. Like, they're gonna ignite in some cases a lot of the things that you thought were being ignited during Rebels that are actually already going on. So like Ahsoka's gonna get dragged back in here at some point. She has to.
Yeah, I guess you could.
I don't think that she has to, but it's Filoni's show, so I'm sure she will.
We're this close to Plo Koon's Force Ghost.
Oh, we are closer than you think, considering.
It has to be. I mean, okay. Omega has Force powers, right?
That's one of my early bets was that she was Force, at least Force sensitive. Like there's something I feel like it's there. I feel like we're gonna get something, but I don't know. It's I don't know where we're gonna go next. I feel like we should have had the reveal already. Like that should have
No.
been how she was saved. Well, I mean, we also don't know how many seasons they have planned for this too. Before the end, when they said, "Oh yeah, they're coming back for season 2," I'm like, "Oh okay, I get it." But
Yeah,
Yeah.
it feels like a 3 season.
Maybe when they were tinkering with her genetics, because obviously she's female and blonde and not male and dark haired like Django. So maybe when they were tinkering with her genetic code, they were like how they made the clones more made it so that they were better at taking orders. Maybe they were tinkering with her, trying to give her force powers, and that's going to be related to Snoke and
That's
Palpatine
why I was
and
thinking the
Grogu.
Snoke thing is it why it has to be likely that she has Force sensitivity and why she's so important and why they took Nala Se is because she connects in that line of Palpatine trying to make Force sensitive clones and they just don't work, right? And so it's likely a spoiler that we know by the end of Rise of Skywalker, or that he still can't clone a Force sensitive clone well, and therefore she probably did Galen Erso herself and put in some sort of
Kool-Aid. She's like, she's just
like,
like, oh, knocked over
dumping-
that vial. My
dumping
bad.
in oh man, another one failed. I don't know how we did it with Omega that one time ever.
Isn't that your lunch in there? I was talking about it.
I left my gloves somewhere. I don't.
Which has seemed like, I'm not sure if they just don't want to address it and if they're ignoring it, or if I just have a complete misunderstanding of how cloning works, but they keep talking about how like Boba and Omega are the only unmodified clones, but like clearly I think that we can assume that Boba looks exactly like Jango would have looked when he was 10 years old.
Yeah.
But like clearly they did some tinkering with Omega because
Oh, absolutely.
she doesn't
Yeah.
she's female, she's blonde, like, so like I think that they would have had to do some tinkering. So maybe they did less than the clones, but it seems
think-
like
There's also no.
it seems like they had to do some.
There's also, but I think it's more that there's no age manipulation too, where they're given the
Yeah.
fast growth hormone and stuff
And
like
she's
that.
not like most of the I think they consider her a Gen 1 or Gen 0 clone, right? She's not even an age advanced
Alpha,
altered
like a
first gen clone would be, right? If you count the clones that go to battle as Gen 1 or whatever, and the ones that rolled off the line first, those even are manipulated, and they don't want to clone from those, right? You end up with the problem. So that's in universe. I'm not saying I know how cloning works. I'm going by their in universe explanations so far, and why it seems like even if Omega is tinkered with, they can say she's of that pure lineage because she still has like, okay, well, if we took her genetic code back and we just flipped that from male to female thing, she'd be pretty dang close. Is my guess. I'm just making an explanation out of my butt here, but
it's solid.
it seems though that she's more important than Boba Fett. It's not like they're out there being like, well, we know where Boba Fett is, so why don't we just go get him?
I don't think they do know where Boba is.
He's running around on some starships, blowing some things up, and then imprisoned at some point. Just
Yeah, but I,
mean,
think he's
he's got a
think
chain
he's still
code. He
running
can't be
around.
that hard to
Yeah.
track down.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, we didn't know about tracking chain codes until later on because that's a fairly
That's a mess.
newer.
That whole thing's a
Yeah.
mess.
But I mean, even Omega says to Rex, she's like, "You're an alpha." Like she knows that she can see because of how he's aged, where like his his generation of clone, and he's an alpha. He's one of the first off the line, so to speak. Like aside
Right.
from, so it's like there's definitely which I wonder. I don't think we've had too many. I don't think we've had too many novelizations where we could have heard from his point of view. But I wonder if we ever hear like, oh, because part of him being able to resist was because he was an alpha. That
Or
with
a lot of
Ahsoka.
it seems like the clones that end up resisting are the ones that
Yeah.
have deeper emotional ties to people, right? So like Hauser and Hera's dad, what's his name? I can't remember. God,
Not
there's so many.
Cham. Is it Cham? Yeah, it's Cham.
It's Cham.
Yeah, Cham.
Yeah, it's so many characters, man. How do you do it?
They just stuck up here.
So Cham Syndulla and Hauser had such a deep connection that eventually, they both are saying to each other like, this feels wrong, and he's able to kind of like back himself out of that area. I mean, even Rex could only back himself out so far, and then had to be saved by Ahsoka with the machine. So I think it has less to do with the generations, and the storytelling is more about the relationships. And so the Jedi that treated their clones, like garbage, didn't end up surviving.
Well, also there's there's two different aspects on that. One, two, we talked as we mentioned the signal. Like, oh, the signal's been turned. Like they've laid off that signal because we do know that that's one thing that we'll come to at the end was that we do know for a fact that at the beginning of the series, Crosshair still had a chip in him because they said, "Oh, it's still there. It's just not fully active." They turned it up, so they got him to flip for against his team. But then later on, we have we have a couple different clones that are kind of like, oh, they're not quite as quick to be like, oh, shoot him, shoot him, shoot him, shoot him. And so I think that there is a certain amount of like, okay, once they activate the signal, they oh, well, go ahead and turn off that thing. It's good now. We killed off all the Jedi.
Yeah.
Do they still need to, as that's wearing off, to kind of see and stuff? They did cover that a little bit in the Kanan comic book series, where it's like later on, those clones that had confronted him and Depa Billaba were like, one of them was like, they're like, no, like, what's going on? Like they started to question what had happened because they're like, that didn't make any sense. They were our commanders. Like, why did we do that? And if it's more of like, at least initially it was a signal, and like over time, like Hauser, they kind of go like, what's going on here? Like we can logically think this through, and we don't see it as a choice I would have made. And
Right.
so I'm curious where we're in depth with that. Also, because we do have to figure out that at some point, Crosshair says he removed his chip long ago, and like doesn't say when. We don't find out how. Just says I removed it long ago, just to kind of like one up Hunter. It's like, the hell are you talking about? And then they just never touch on it again, which is probably my low point of the series.
Why is it a
Just
low
that
point? Why not take his word as the? Oh man, okay. I mean, it's a reveal. It's a big reveal, and it's, to me, it was like that actually kind of makes some sense, because the way he explains it after that is like, you never came back for me. You never tried to help me.
I don't know, Kit, do you have? I can jump into it, but
But no, I want to hear Kit's thoughts on that too, because you said as a low point for me, it was kind of like I'm very happy they said that his chip was out, because I came into the show, and then I'll let you go, Kit, because I just want to put it out there that I came into the show thinking I always loved the sniper characters. It's just a way that my brain works.
it's why you play video games. You're like, oh, I like the Donatello, or you like the Raph.
Yeah,
Like we all choose our characters at some point, and
yeah.
that was your choice.
Gundams with long range weaponry, that stuff. And so I was like, I'm gonna love Crosshair, and then they made him a bad guy instantly, and I was like, oh no, I've never been an Empire rooter in my entire fandom of Star Wars, and they did the job where I still wanted to see Crosshair on screen, especially because he never gels with the real bad people that he works with. He works with some very like not good people, and he's never like beholden to them. He's like, I'm doing the job the Empire says needs to be done because I believe it needs to be done. And so when we finally get to the end, it's like he believes it needs to be done, and he doesn't have a chip, so he really believes it needs to be done. Becomes a more inspiring character choice to me in terms of like storytelling and what that could mean for watching Crosshair for 5 more seasons instead of like in 2 more seasons everything's solved because he lied and he still has his chip and it was all mind control. It's like it's very clearly not mind control, based on the other clones. I don't know. What do you feel, Kit?
I find Crosshair to be a very confusing and complicated character, and I don't know. I find it hard to believe that if he did take his chip out, I don't know. For me personally, trying to put myself in his shoes, I can see where he maybe necessarily wouldn't want to hang out with the other Bad Batch members because of what had happened in the show. But if he took his chip out, I don't understand why he would still be hanging out with the Empire, because like clearly it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't seem like his goals align with the Empire's goals. So it seems to me like he would just, I mean, even before they try to leave him on the planet and sink the the lab or whatever, it just, I don't know. It just seems like if he had taken his chip out, that he would probably have been like, you know what, I don't, I'm just gonna leave. Like, I don't want to go hang out with the Bad Batch anymore because we don't get along, but I definitely don't gel with the Empire, so I'm just going to take off and go be a bounty hunter or whatever. I don't know. I find him to be a difficult character for me to reconcile within the show.
I think that's
And
fair.
I think my part of it too is that it's the vagueness of it. Of I took it out long ago. It's like, what do you mean long ago? Like maybe a month or two ago, you definitely had it. Like we confirmed, like it's there. So to say you took it out long ago, that's I think where my biggest kind of like bump comes is like if he said, I took out, I found out about the chip and I took it out last week. Oh, okay. At least then gives me some idea where he removed the chip and now he's like, okay, I'm starting to see where my agenda and my planning and my thoughts go and where the Empire goes. And so he still has room to grow from there because he's no longer has that the mental push from the Empire. But to be like, oh, I took it out long ago, and not like date it for us, because I mean, maybe it's my stupid continuity brain where I'm like, no, when did you take it out? Because I want answers. Like,
You want the mission. You want to be like, I took it
Yeah.
out before Ryloth.
well, in my head, I'm like, I want it taken out probably shortly after they take out theirs, because essentially he gets burned horribly on the side of his head
Yeah.
from the engine, and I'm like, I want it to be taken out right about there. Like they were responsible for him to be scarred. He gets the thing taken out, and from there he's like, no, they left me behind. They scarred me. They essentially tried to kill me. That's where his thing is. Like, just give me
Why do you not accept that it could be there?
I know I do accept it could be there, but tell me that. Like give me some point, because just to say long ago, I had a lot of people saying like, oh, does this mean he didn't have his chip in since then? Like, no, he had it. They like it's confirmed that it's in the first episode. So it's like
Yeah.
the vagueness gives too many people thinking like, oh, maybe he had it. He didn't have it at all, since he just wanted to kill Kanan. Like, no, he clearly was being triggered by that. He
Yeah.
was being pushed to do that. So
Absolutely.
that's where I don't like that vagueness. I want answers. I want some clarity. That's where I'm like, it's my biggest. Like we get it as a real kind of like drop, like boom, I took it out long ago at the end of the second to last episode. I'm like, okay, cool. We're gonna address this. We got a whole nother episode, and then they run around for a bunch of whatever, and he ends up saving Omega and also AZ. Like he saves them all. I'm like, that's cool. I'm glad he did. I was hoping like. I'm glad for that moment, and I was hoping for him to be like, okay, let me come with you, or like Kit saying, even go off on his own and do his own thing. But like right after that, the Empire's going to show him up, pick him up, and like, all right, let's go back to base. Like, no, how'd you get out of it? Are they still alive? XYZ. Like they're going to put the screws to him. And
It's still
I don't know.
possible that happens next season.
Yeah. And so it's like, so then the Empire knows that they're still alive, and so we have to contend with that, that's fine storytelling. But I'm like, I wanted something, a little more clarity and conclusion on that, just not too long ago. Well, let's not talk about it anymore. Let's focus on this stuff. It's like that's the thing I want to know about the most, and that's where it's the down point. It's still a good ending of the season for me. Like it's still lots of good points. Like when they go up in the pods, although a lot of stuff in the pod thing doesn't make sense. Like Omega and AZ couldn't be in with like okay,
Yeah.
Wrecker gets one
I
pod.
know. That one makes no sense. It makes sense Wrecker gets a pod, but like,
Yeah.
why wouldn't you put Crosshair in his own pod? Like,
Put Crosshair is unless you want someone to watch him, but then you put you like the just the way they paired people up. Like Omega's small, put her in with Hunter. Like, why would you not put them together in a better configuration of like, oh yeah, you guys just do that and do over like that part threw me off a little bit, but whatever.
yeah, I
That's a
definitely
nitpick.
agree. No, it's not a nitpick. It's something I noticed too. I was like, what? Why would you ever put her in her own pod? Like, why wouldn't you? If you cared about her, you'd keep her in
Yeah.
your pod.
Hunter, stay with me. Like
Yeah.
done.
Yeah. I thought I watched it overall, and I thought this is as good as Rebels was. I think,
Oh yeah, for sure.
but
It's
not,
slightly different because you have a different crew and you have different
Sure.
story motivations. But yeah,
but it's not like world breakingly good. I would say.
I mean, yeah, I mean that's fair to say, and I also think it's in that case. I guess it's one thing going if you think that it's going to be only a one season show, you have certain
Yeah.
expectations. Like where's this going to go? Is this going to be world like? No, it's like this is meant to be almost.
It's
I mean,
meant to be
similar
long.
to
Clone
Yeah,
Wars
meant to be long.
extension.
Yeah. Yeah. And so if we would have
I-
known that before, we would have had different expectations, maybe. Kit?
I thought Rebels was much better.
I think by the end,
I was gonna
Rebels is
say
much better.
like. So I know that I'm in the minority on this, but for me, Rebels, basically within the first couple of episodes, Rebels I really connected with Rebels, and I loved Rebels almost from the very beginning, and in
Amen.
a way that I did not with Clone Wars or this. And it's likely that Bad Batch will grow on me like Clone Wars did. That Bad Batch will grow on me over time. And it's not like I don't like Bad Batch. I do like Bad Batch. I just I had an practically instant connection with Rebels that I did not have with the other two shows. And it's not really fair because Rebels has 4 seasons and this only has 1. But I thought Rebels. I really liked Rebels season 1 and 2, and I thought that Rebels season 1 was much stronger than Bad Batch season 1.
Okay.
Or at the very least, that I enjoyed Rebels season 1 much more than I enjoyed Bad Batch season 1.
I get into Rebels, and I think by the end of Rebels, 3 and 4 are much better than this. I'm just saying as like my feeling of the entirety of Rebels. There's a lot of low points for me personally, especially early, where I just was like, people really like this. I'll keep watching it. And then Ezra starts to become a Jedi, and Kanan gets blinded. Spoilers, I'm sorry, but it's just the way that it is. We got to talk about the show.
I think it's
and-
interesting too that when you said the other two shows, there's also Resistance, and we're not talking about that at all.
I'm never.
I
going
liked
to
Bad
watch
Batch
Resistance.
much more than the Resistance. Yeah.
That's fair. That's
I
very fair.
I think I'm never going to watch Resistance. I don't think I can be convinced, especially with a new show coming in 4 days.
I liked Bad Batch season 1 much more than Clone Wars season 1. I felt like it was much more consistent than Clone Wars season 1. Although Clone Wars season 1 was very up and down for me. It was very much dependent on which story arc we're talking about, because some of the story arcs in Clone Wars season 1 I enjoyed a whole lot, like very, very much. And then there were others where it was like 4 episodes of just me being like, ugh.
Yeah,
And
but
then,
it's an easy
which
answer.
I think, yeah.
It's
But I
easy
enjoyed
for
Bad
them.
Batch more than Clone Wars season 1.
Sure, because
And
it's
both of those shows a lot more than Resistance.
it's easy for Bad Batch to be better because you already know all the things they want you to know if you watched Clone Wars, right? They're not especially trying to onboard. I mean, you absolutely could watch this without having watched the other stuff, and they slowly get to some of it. But the character reveals, like, here's Rex, that's Echo, this is that. it's really, really geared for people that know the Clone Wars characters and the Clone Wars story. And it's not the best of the onboarding moments, which is why, Rebels and Clone Wars and maybe Resistance, I don't know, connect to people easier, I think, than this one.
I think that they could easily call this Clone Wars Season 8, and nobody would have really
But the Clone Wars are over, so they had to call it something else.
Right.
Yeah. As a Rhea Perlman fan, I really appreciate this series. I feel the other ones are lacking in Rhea Perlman.
Okay, well, we should talk about
fact.
We should talk about Visions. Is she in Visions?
I don't know. I thought we were going to do the Cheers cast. I'm sorry. I guess I misunderstood.
No.
Or the Matilda
Japanese?
Or the Matilda podcast.
Matilda podcast? Is that what we're doing?
She's in Matilda, and so is Danny DeVito. Rhea Perlman. Anyways,
wait, who's Rhea Perlman in Matilda?
Is it Matilda? I'm pretty sure it's Matilda. Or was it? Dang it!
I'm looking it up because I have to know. She says.
I'm fairly yes. Yep.
Yeah, she's
right.
In it.
Yeah. Okay.
She plays the blonde-haired wife.
Danny
DeVito's wife.
Mm-hmm. And who is also Danny DeVito's wife?
Is she actually?
Yeah, they're married.
I don't know anything
I think
about
they're separated now.
Rhea
It's okay.
Perlman.
You don't need to know celebrity gossip.
She's crazy in that show.
But
I don't even recognize her.
Yeah.
Wow.
Touching back on the with Bad Batch, it is more of a like you're already online. I think to your comments about Clone Wars, the first season started out as more as the anthology idea of like, oh, we're gonna jump from this character, this character, this character, and tell different stories across the universe. And they Clone Wars is the first out the gate, so it definitely has to find its legs. And by the time you get to Rebels, they knew the formula. And they're like, okay, this is what we're gonna do, and we're gonna get there. And then with Bad Batch, it's just they're able to refine that technique time and time again. Sometimes with new creators, sometimes with some veterans in the mix too. So it's like Bad Batch has the strength of so many people who came before it with the other storytelling shows. So they have that. And whereas I think with Visions, as much as it's going to be looks really cool, it's going to be another anthology kind of thing. It's going to be an animatrix of like, here's the story in this style. Next week, you're going to get a completely different story with a completely different style. I mean, completely different style, but like it's going to be a very different take. And I wonder if people are ready for the Fantasia of it, of like, oh yeah, this is the part with the dancing hippos, but then the next part has nothing to do with this one, and it's very separate storytelling. I'm curious how people will receive that after having at least publicly more watching like The Mandalorian, where it is that continuous story. Will they see this and be like, oh wait, well, where's the character from last time? I really liked them. It feels like a step back almost a little bit to Clone Wars of being like, oh, where's Jedi Master? I'm gonna die, and
I'm gonna die.
Yeah, Star Wars has a history of bad naming, but yeah, the first time we go on Ryloth is with the Jedi Master. I'm a gun die, and he's on Ryloth and he's trying to protect, and guess what? He ends up dying. Him and his clone commander and stuff, and it's a really good story, even though they stupidly named him Jedi Master. I'm gonna die.
I'm glad I'm not the only one who pronounces his name that way.
Well, just because I'm sure I think they do it better in the show, but I'm like, this is ridiculous. You guys could have named him something else, just like Savage Opress. I still hate those names. They're so like Savage Opress. Just the next bad guy. Yeah, just a bit too much. Meanie McSlavery didn't seem to make the cut. I don't know. Like, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah. See, I would read that.
So
I would read that as a script reader, and I'd be like, Ima Gundi?
Yeah, I think that's the way they say it, Imagundi. But it's it's just ridiculous.
I'm a Gundai. Yeah, he definitely did.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Bad Batch. I think we talked about it. Visions. Do we have a lot to say? It's out in 4 days. There's been some trailers. I'm excited. I like this idea of anthologies without having to worry about what's connected to what. I think a lot of Star Wars fans that don't think that, I mean, there's some that are on this pod on the main. You know, this stuff, the animated stuff, is not for them because it's too connected to things that they haven't watched and they don't have time to watch, right?
Oh, they have time. They choose not to.
Well, we're too busy watching Evangelion.
By the way, I watched all 3 episodes of the final one of the Amazon
Rebuild?
stuff. Yeah,
Rebuild? Okay, don't spoil it.
watch
I'm in the second one. I just finished the second one.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah,
what
it's
what a different
yeah.
thing than the show. Yeah,
and in ways
what a world.
similar, but yeah,
Yeah, oh, it's very
it's-
similar, especially the
it's
first
very,
one. The
it's
first
very
one's
interesting
like,
the way they dance between the two.
oh yeah,
But this
The
is
first.
this
Yeah,
this
this
isn't
is
an
not
Ava.
an Eva. Yeah, this is not Eva.
This is not into the entry plugs. This is not an LCL podcast. This is the
LCL
Carbon
scoring.
there
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah. Visions. Yeah. Boba Fett's gonna be back with Tamara Morrison
Oh, okay,
For-
yeah, nice.
for whatever reason. I don't know
Yeah.
why, but I think
on
they
board.
just sort of gave the people that made this free license to make stories, right? I don't.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that, and it's also like really different eras too, because you have just full on like, oh, it's Sith, like he's clearly a Sith, and they're like, you have to think that if we're talking about the rebellion era, that they're mostly in the shadows. So,
Yeah.
and they have great creators on it too. So I'm
they've
on
got
board.
some great names on here. I don't know if you've seen some of the people that are acting in it, like Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Lucy Liu, Alison Brie, Simu Liu.
Yep.
Is it not?
Uh,
Okay, the trailer that I watched was all in Japanese. Is it not in Japanese? All of it?
I think you
Not-
get the
not
I
option.
all
assume
of it.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt is not doing Japanese voice
There are
work.
definitely a lot of Japanese. Hey, guess who's back?
Back again.
Hey, do you know who Masioka is?
I do know Masioka is. We've discussed him on Heroes. He's Hero. He's also on Scrubs.
He's gonna be Ethan in this.
Okay, I don't know. Are there multiple trailers? Because I watched
No,
one
no.
trailer for this, and
Yeah,
it was all
there's-
in Japanese.
He's not
Like,
he's not
the-
looking at the
the
trailer.
voices
He's
in it.
gonna
I was just looking at the cast
IMDb.
list. Yeah,
Yeah, no, this is the first time I've looked at it too. But like, obviously,
there are some people
Well, I
in here
don't
that
know.
don't speak Japanese. You're correct.
yeah. I mean, I
Kyle
guess not.
Chandler.
I guess I shouldn't assume, but yeah.
Kyle Chandler does not look like he speaks Japanese to me.
I guess it's possible that when it comes out, you can watch it in Japanese with Japanese voice actors, and then dubbed in English with English-speaking voice actors. I guess I don't
It's
know.
gonna be-
The trailer that I watched was entirely in Japanese, so I thought that the show was going
I
to
mean,
be in
the
Japanese.
top billing is for definitely some Japanese actors too. That I just never heard of them though. You know, but it's
Yeah.
it's anthology too, so it's like only 1 episode or 2 episodes for each of these people.
Yeah.
Um,
It also looks like all of these episodes are dropping on the same day, according to IMDb. Like it's not going to be a weekly thing.
really?
All of them are listed as the 22nd of September.
But that's
Whoa.
just
All
that's
10
just
of
but
them.
that I mean
That may not be 100% correct, but
That
Yeah,
can't
that's
be
what
right.
IMDb is showing right now.
That's
The
IMDb,
Disney
though.
model is not to do that. I would not believe
Yeah.
that they would just dump it all. If they did, I would be ecstatic for no reason. It's not like I'm saving any money because I've got 2 kids, man. We have
You're-
Disney Plus until I die.
yeah, I mean I would imagine that they're gonna drop it weekly. I would think that it's just IMDb people just like, oh, just we don't have a date,
Yeah,
so
we don't have dates.
we'll
It's
just
very
put this.
possible or likely. Yeah.
Touching on the forward thought stuff, do we want to talk about some of the a little nugget that was dropped on the Kenobi show?
Yeah, do it. Hit us up as long as it's not a major spoiler.
I mean, it's I don't know. I don't know where it would
Does
land.
Kenobi die?
Yeah, that's a major enough spoiler. I don't
No,
want to know if
just-
Kenobi dies.
One of the actors who's being cast in the show mentions that his role includes a lightsaber.
Is it Kenobi?
No.
Is it Ewan
Yes,
McGregor?
yes.
Okay.
Hayden Christensen is back. We already
Yeah.
spoiled that, and he is reprising his role as Darth Vader. So
No, so Sung Kang from some might know him as Han Solo from the Fast and the Furious series.
Han Solo.
Yeah, that's his name.
It's
It's like
not.
soul as in. Well, yes, it is.
No,
Yes,
Is that how
That's
it's
his name.
pronounced? It's not pronounced that way.
It's he goes by the name, he goes by Han, and it's Seoul.
Yeah,
It's Seoul as in Korea. Seoul.
Yeah.
S. Yeah. So that's he's Han
It's
Solo.
Han Sol. Yeah. It's
He
not Han
he goes.
Solo.
I mean, have you watched it lately? Might want to go back and watch those movies.
Did they change his name to
I haven't
Han
watched
Solo?
any of the Fast and the Furious movies. So I watched the first one and liked it. I watched the second one and was sort of ambivalent towards it. And then one of them was on when Alice was like 3 months old, and Vin Diesel did a flying headbutt off. They were fighting in a plane, and Vin Diesel did a flying headbutt off of a crate, and she immediately jumped in and headbutted me in the mouth. So I don't let her watch any more Fast and Furious movies.
His name is not Han Solo, man. You're making stuff up out of your brain.
Mm,
It's Han Lu.
Maybe they just call him that because his name is Han.
Maybe they made a joke.
they did.
Yeah.
I see.
Maybe it's like his
Okay.
nickname.
Yeah. And so
I don't know.
anyways,
Again, I haven't seen hardly any of these. So
Since
I
you
don't
got headbutted.
not since you got headbutted
Yeah.
by the baby Rock. Baby Dwayne Johnson was just like, Dad,
I think
bam.
we
Yeah,
might need
welcome
to
to
have
Laurie.
a counseling.
It happened in the movie, and then she immediately just like pushed with her legs and launched herself into my mouth with her head, and I'm just like, all right, we are
We
done
need to
with
deal
that.
with this. We need to deal with this trauma, buddy. I think you're missing out on some action. Although the fourth one's really bad. We shouldn't
I love
watch
that the
one.
Simpsons. I love that the Simpsons informed this type of thinking. Like Maggie saw it on TV and immediately hit Homer in the head with a hammer. Like immediately, just turned to him and said, "Bam!" Somehow grabbed a hammer, and she's like, her first instinct is like, "That looks fun. I need to do it." Hey, Dad, come here. Bonk. Oh my God, that's hilarious. I mean, not for you at
That's
the
just how
time.
babies
I mean,
work.
it's
Yeah.
it's
That's how
hilarious
babies
for all
work.
of us. That's for sure. Okay, so Sun
Ugh.
Kang is gonna show up, and he's got a lightsaber, so we know that
Yeah.
he survived Order 66, but we don't know who he is.
Yeah, we don't know who he is, but it's definitely interesting to see like, okay, so we'll have another lightsaber wielder at some point. So I'm like, ooh, that makes me happy. Like, I like knowing that little bit. Like, it's
Can I
Unless
make a
he's one of
Holly?
the Force babies that
I was gonna.
he could be an Inquisitor. He could be a Force baby.
That's what I was gonna
Mhm.
just say. I was gonna say if
Palpatine
I'm
was-
Hollywood and I'm slightly racist still, he's Asian, so he's gonna be a bad guy.
I mean, Hollywood is still so it could be.
It makes
also-
a lot of sense for him to be. It makes a lot of sense for a Kenobi show to introduce the Inquisitors in live action because we've only seen him in Rebels, I think.
That is
Right?
true. Yeah.
Yeah.
In live action, we've only seen them in Rebels and
Some
and
games,
the video game. Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that the first live action Inquisitor would be cool.
Yeah.
Not that that's his role, obviously. But
Yeah.
if I made a guess, it's hard to make a show called Kenobi and be like, we got all these other light side Force wielders. Like, wait a minute.
Yeah. I mean,
Do we know like more? Obviously, it's set in between 3 and 4, but do we know more concretely? Like, is it like right before 4? Is it in the middle? Is it right after 3? Have they said anything like that?
they haven't. And to a certain
Okay.
degree, I think like we can have it set like say we get an 8 episode series. I think we could very easily have a 2-episode arc where it's a flashback and it's him younger, and that's where we have that Kenobi. That's one thing that when they said like, oh, it's for sure going to be or they said, oh, it's a what do they say? It's a rematch of Vader and Kenobi, and like you're not going to have like that doesn't make any sense timeline wise for them to be like, oh, here's Darth Vader and here's Kenobi fighting on the dunes of Tatooine.
I mean, it can't because in the
Right.
freaking first movie ever made, he's like, I don't what?
Yeah,
Obi-Wan
exactly.
Kenobi's here? Oh my god. And
Yeah.
it's like this huge revelation, right? Like
Yeah.
they can't meet again before
And so-
that movie. I mean, just
Exactly.
logically.
Right, logically. So I feel like it's like we're gonna have some flashbacks because since what's his face is gonna be there. I feel like we're just gonna have some flashbacks to them during some some training, maybe some late Clone War stuff. I hope that's what we get. I hope we get some, and that's we could also have Sung Kang in that like he's like, oh, Jedi Master, Solo. Like what we, what did you have to say? Like we have some flashback moments like that.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
can see stuff like that.
I
Okay.
if they're gonna have Hayden Christensen, I would suspect that they're gonna have him, whether it's a flashback to before he gets put in the suit, or whether it's like some sort of uh, um, astral plane thing where he's not in the suit. I can't imagine them hiring Hayden Christensen just to put him in the suit and then have James Earl Jones do the voice. Like that doesn't make any sense to me. So I would assume that if they were doing it, that it would be him out of the suit.
He was
Agreed.
wearing at his latest signing the hat from the stunt teams, which they usually give out for when like the actors have been doing lots of training with the stunt teams. So you would guess that that means he's doing a lot of lightsaber training, which would
And
lead
he
you to
might. I'm
believe
just
it's
saying I
Clone
don't
Wars
think
stuff,
that they
right?
would get. Yeah, I'm just saying I don't think that they will hire all of the stuff about his tiny hands aside. I don't think that they would hire Hayden Christensen to make him
Not see
get
him.
into the Darth Vader suit again and then have somebody else do the voice. And
Yeah.
then like why would you do that? That doesn't really make any sense to me.
Yeah, so it's gotta, and also he's not that much. I mean, he's older, but he doesn't look that much different compared to like the end of Revenge of the Sith. And Ewan McGregor is not really Alec Guinness age yet. So
Yes, but they can.
I mean,
They
they can
can
age him
tinker
up,
with
obviously.
age.
Like I'm not
Yeah.
saying they can't, but like you're wasting a lot of young ability from these actors if you don't
Yeah.
use them now.
Right.
So it would make a lot of sense what you're saying to flashback, which means Sung Kang could do a lot of other stuff other than be an Inquisitor.
Yeah.
Do you guys think that Sun Kang could be a Jedi who, for whatever reason, wasn't killed by the clones during Order 66, and Darth Vader during the series hunts him down, and Darth Vader has a fight with Sun Kang? Do you think that we will see Darth Vader hunting down and destroying the Jedi?
Yes.
Purge style, yeah. And then maybe that's where we like Kenobi tries to help him escape and isn't able to, but that he has to skulk off because like, well, I couldn't save him. I need to get back to Luke. I mean, or at least he's keeps in communication with him somehow. There's lots of stuff like that. I definitely see that as a potential. What
And
your
I think that besides Kanan and Ahsoka, I think that Yoda and Obi-Wan believed that or maybe knew, I don't know, maybe they could feel him through the Force, but because they changed in Revenge of the Sith, they changed the signal. That the signal was saying all Jedi come back to the temple, and they switched it so that it said stay away, it's a trap.
Yep.
Clearly they think that
Jedi.
there's other Jedi out there that they didn't want to fall into that trap in Revenge of the Sith. So I think that it's possible. Although I kind of hope that they don't overdo this, because I kind of felt like in the old Legends, or now it's Legends, but the old EU, that they sort of went overboard with that. It seemed like every other book, they would go to some planet and find some random Jedi who was living as a pauper on the streets or something, and like it seemed like every single book had that. So I hope that they don't go overboard with it, but I definitely think that that they definitely could have that kind of story, and that it would fit in Kenobi if you have a parallel story going between Kenobi and stuff in the Empire with Vader.
I mean, there's definitely, and that's the thing too, is like people talk about how like, oh, they killed off all the Jedi. It's like even if you say that there's 1,000 Jedi at the time of the Purge, if they killed 99% of them, that still means that there's 100 Jedi out there. Wait, is that math right? No, that's 10%.
If
That's
you
fair
just
enough,
take
yeah.
the one new game as canon, you've already got 2 Jedi there.
That'd be
And
10.
they in that game say that there's more Jedi and Force sensitive children on the holocron.
Yeah.
Right? And so even if there's 2 Jedi alive just from that game, and they go out and they find Force sensitive kids, still the signal is out there to tell them stay away. Like
Yeah.
obviously they know at this point to stay away. But
Yeah.
it's always interesting to me, and it'll be very cool to see, the explanation from these writers, whoever they hire to do this, why Kenobi and Yoda, we get the impression from 4 and 5 episodes 4 and 5, that they went into exile and never tried to help anyone until Luke went and found them, right? That's the impression you're given in those films. I'm not saying it's true. I'm not saying that there aren't books or canon sources already that explain that that's not true. But like in those two movies, you're given the impression they're done. They're out of the Jedi Order. They're not helping any other Jedi. So this show goes into that time period. Yeah, go ahead.
Are we just talking about Empire and Jedi and none of the other stuff?
No, go ahead if you want to jump in. But like
so
those movies
Rebels,
explain.
Right. I'm saying in Rebels, I agree with you if we're just talking about those two movies. But in Rebels, it's clear that I think that it's very clear that Obi-Wan Kenobi is not just waiting. Like he is actively there to protect Luke. And
right, when
like,
Darth Maul shows up,
clearly,
obviously.
Right. And the way that in that fight, it is clear that Obi-Wan Kenobi has spent the last 19 years training very hard every single day to make sure that his lightsaber technique is honed, because he completely destroys Maul.
It also kind of proves my point. Yeah, it's kind of cool how Kenobi in that amount of time has gone from like can't beat Maul really, except for with a little bit of rage, to like super master lightsaber fighter in that amount of time.
I think he had a lot of free time on his hands to focus and like be like, if Maul shows up, this is how I beat him.
But that kind of proves
this is how he fights. I know it. Yeah.
He's on that planet only. In that view of the world from Filoni at that point in time, right? They're gonna have to add something here, and the explanation for multiple sources now of canon that say he didn't leave Tatooine. It's too important. Luke's too important. Yoda. I mean, you could say that who sees him in the temple? Is it Ezra? It's not Ezra. It's Ahsoka in the temple that sees both of them.
Ezra definitely does. He has visions of him. Yeah.
But they say that it's not him in that show. I'm pretty sure they say it's the crystal that's giving them views of masters that have been at the temple, right?
I think that Ezra sees him. Ahsoka doesn't, because Ahsoka, the reason why Ezra sees him is that he has no connection. He can't say, "Oh, I saw Jedi Master Yoda." He can say like, "Oh, I saw this guy who helped me," and that he doesn't. I don't think he specifies to Kanan and to Ahsoka who, like, more specifics of what he saw. He just saw. Okay. He just said someone's like, someone spoke to me, and this is what they said, because I do know that the way Ahsoka speaks of Kenobi, she believes he's dead, at least with her inflections.
Yeah.
As far as Kanan, I don't think he may even said like, oh, I'm trying to remember what he's. I mean, it's a show worth a rewatch, but he doesn't see Jedi Master Yoda, I don't believe. But now I need to rewatch. I don't think it's people who had close connections to Yoda saw him. Otherwise, it'd be like, wait, no, you're Jedi Master Yoda. I know who you are. We work together all the time. Let's go be buddies. Where are you? I'll come pick you up. I've got a vet.
I don't know why I had the impression that on Lothal he didn't contact real Yoda, but that was just maybe at the time my assumption. I don't know.
Yeah, I think Yoda was. I think he was. I mean, I don't. It's hard to say without like a novelization giving some inflection to why he decided to stay. Like, why did he stay in hiding? I mean, it just like to one day, because they. I know that at the end of Revenge of the Sith, in the novelization, he's like, "Oh, we failed. We need to, the Jedi, we failed in our purpose. We need to go into exile to reevaluate what to do next."
That's what he says. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like,
but you get the impression that they're both waiting around for Luke to grow up, and that the only mission is for both of them to wait where they are in hiding, so that they don't get caught by Vader until Luke grows up. How do you make a show in the meantime where they have to do those things, or explain why they didn't do those things, and then also get to the other place where they still appear to have just been waiting around for, like, can they slide this in is going to be very interesting to me.
That's why I think you have a young Indiana Jones scenario where you have, just like at the end of, for you guys, I don't know if you watched Indiana Jones, The Young Adventures of Young Indiana Jones. At the end of it, it's just old Indy telling stories about his childhood. But you could easily do lots of that with the Kenobi series of like, oh, this is how I first met Duchess Satine. back when she was just Satine, and I fell in love with her, and
Well,
we
we've
almost
got a live action bow we can use for that kind of thing.
yeah. And so it's like you have those moments like, oh, we could definitely do that kind of stuff, and I'd be on board for that. And that's where I think, I mean, we do have moments within the comics of like stories that were told of like, oh, this is what Obi-Wan was doing. He was protecting it. He was keeping pirates from raiding the Skywalker farm. Things of that. What's up?
Could we get a live action Hondo Anaka?
Oh, I hope so.
Yeah.
Oh my God. They already have him at the park. You know, people know him from the ride, so it's possible that they could slide him in here and be like, Hondo shows up on Tatooine and is like, "You look familiar."
Oh God, I can't see him not as much as like I love Hondo. I can't see him not blabbing and being like, for a good price, I could tell you where he is. Like I can't see him not being Hondo. And now I'm wondering if they make a Hondo Lego guy, because now I want a Hondo Lego guy.
Oh, I'm sure they do. Huh. There's not a lot of cast listed for this show. They don't even... Oh, no. Sun Kang's on here now.
There is, but it's an outdated figure. Sucks.
Huh.
But now
Yeah,
I
there's
want that
not a lot.
Hondo Naka figure.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well-
I'm like, dang it.
I hope you're as Star Warsed out as I am, because we had to get it out of us to like purge before Visions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I
I'm
just
ready.
needed to...
I'm ready for Visions. I'm ready for season 4 of Cobra Kai. I'm ready for...
Where is that? I mean, I get it. COVID and like doing martial arts and all that maybe don't mix very well. But they haven't said anything, have they? What's the date for season 4?
Let's see if there is one. I am December of this year.
Okay, a lot of stuff in December. Maybe
December.
Yeah.
Like that's not a date. That's a
No.
general. That's a month. Like
It's like a
they could be like,
target. Like a-
December 31st. Like at midnight.
Yeah,
so technically
sure.
January 1st.
I could watch that for New Year's. I'd be down with that.
I'd be way down for that.
I'm pretty sure that's what I did last year. I think that they dropped season 3 on New Year's Day, because I'm
Did they
pretty
really?
sure I spent New Year's Day watching Cobra Kai. Yeah, I think so.
Awesome.
Or at least during that weekend around there. So that's what I remember. But
Cool.
So jumping back on a few different things, Andy, do you think you'll watch the He-Man and the Masters of the Universe cartoon, the kid-centric one?
Based on Kit's estimation of who it's for, I have put it lower on my list than I thought it would be. I thought based on...
it is definitely aimed at a younger audience than Revelation, but an older kid audience than Filmation.
And
Right.
that's where I'm curious, because you've got the two girls. Could you be like, hey guys, try this out, even if they don't like it for an episode?
They're
at
younger
least you
though.
dip your
They're
toe in.
younger than what he's saying that the target is. So the Filmation might be more the area that I'm looking at, right? Especially because She-Ra was my first guess, and then both of you said that's a little bit older than my kids are, and it sounds like the He-Man kind of runs into the same issues. So maybe the older
The
ones
Netflix
might...
She-Ra. Yeah.
Yeah, the Netflix She-Ra. So the older ones might be higher on the list. I was gonna wonder, Kit, did you watch the new Voltron, the Legendary Defender on Netflix?
I have, sadly, that is one that I have not gotten to yet.
Okay, so I'd be curious if you do watch it. I know.
I know. I've been meaning to for years.
But that's an older kids show also, I think. Like I watched it and I was like, my kids would not watch this probably.
I think the new Masters of the Universe would be good for your girls. Kit, it's standard kind of comic booky violence and wizardry. I don't think it's that.
I don't think that there's anything that you should
hold them back from saying it's more of a...
Right.
Do they connect to it?
My daughter watched the first episode and it was just not her thing. She wanted to go back to watching the Filmation stuff because she likes that better.
That's part of the problem right now is like I don't think there's some of it, like the Voltron stuff, they have Star Wars toys, they get that people shoot lasers at each other. I don't particularly love showing them stuff that's all violence. But Voltron doesn't run that all the time, but their interest level is not like sticking with the like who's this? What are they doing? Why are they doing it? What was from the story last time? Like, one little piece can carry over. Maybe that's enough. You know, like they love that Lion Guard show on Disney, and like, oh, there's a new bad guy each episode, but the bad guy's not really a bad guy. They're just misunderstood. And then eventually, kind of like 2 or 3 seasons in, gets to like, ooh, Scar's back. But like, you don't have to remember anything except that Scar is back. You know what I mean?
Scar is back in Lion Guard?
Yeah, man. Spoilers.
Like, wait, actual Scar? Not just like Scar 2, the Reckoning or something? Like a different Scar?
Do you want me to tell you, or do you want?
Yeah, no, please tell me, because now
Okay.
like, I have to go.
So Scar is reborn in the fires of a volcano using Rafiki's gaffy stick, or whatever you want to call it.
Okay, so just magic in back.
Yeah,
okay.
he's like a magically back,
okay.
like bad guy leader, but he's not like a lion, you know.
Okay,
He like
that's fine.
leads the hyenas and all the other like skinks and the other outlands creatures from a volcano where he's been reborn in so it's like, you know how Mufasa exists astrally? He exists all the time in the volcano, so he's like accessible to the bad guys, versus like Kion, who's Simba's second kid, has to talk to Mufasa through using astral projection or whatever.
Gotcha. Okay, we'll follow up on that on our Guarding the Pride Lands episode. But it's good.
Not a bad show, honestly.
No,
as an adult, I have watched it and been like, oh, I'm curious what happens like story wise next. And they do bring in Simba, and the boy is not gonna take over the Pride Lands. It's the daughter that's gonna. There's a lot of stuff going on for adults to actually sit down, and it's not like the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse where you're like, okay, it's just noise to me.
Yeah, I think that we had a on Tangential Giants. We had a whole episode about adult cartoons, and Cream's like, this isn't for adults. Like Last Airbender, he's like, this isn't for kids, and I'm like, Airbender's for young kids.
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, it's for older kids.
Yeah, it's older kids, but not. There's
Not for
enough for an
like
adult
tweens.
to. Yeah,
exactly.
I think
but
there's
not
a huge
necessarily
difference between there's enough for adults to enjoy, and even often there are sub stories that are more for adults to connect to, but it's still a kids show, right? It's
but
still a kids show. I'm hoping that's
so,
true for the new Star Trek show that's coming to Nickelodeon.
Yeah, for me, I definitely think that like Voltron Legendary Defender was for at minimum tweens, but if not older. I think it was geared towards an older fan base that was at least aware of who Voltron was or that concept. Whereas with Revelations is also geared towards that, more like, no, this is more of it's targeted to be at a higher age. Whereas the new He-Man and the Masters of the Universe is geared towards that Lion Guard age range. It's in that space. Watch the first episode yourself, and then it's like, oh yeah, the kids could. I mean, each kid is going to be their own unique thing. So, and if I don't think anybody gets headbutted in it, so I think you're safe.
Okay.
Actually, I take that back. Ram Mam. That's, by the way, I don't know if
Ram Mam.
Yeah, Ram Mam. Instead of being Ran Man, it's Ram Mam.
Nice. I'm into that.
Yeah, exactly. She's awesome. She's a fun little character, and I like her design.
Yeah.
I had an audible chuckle. I literally lolled when I realized that was who she was.
Well, speaking of He-Man, is it toy time? Should we talk about some toys for a minute?
Yeah. Yeah, we got about another 10 minutes in me.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a good call. Like, because toys can go all day, as evidenced by our group chat. I say this lovingly to you guys. You're bad influences on me.
That's true. I'm an enabler. Yeah.
Because we talk about this stuff in the thing, and I'll be like, oh man, I really like that. And then the inevitable, they have a toy line for this, comes up. And I'm starting to run out of room.
I think
Ken's killing me with the Mega Construct stuff.
I can't do it. I have
he's killing me.
made a very strong personal mission to only buy Legos, and only buy Legos of 1,000 pieces or larger.
Oh, really? 1,000 pieces or larger? That's specific for yourself.
for myself, not for the kids don't count in this estimation, and therefore, lots of littler Star Wars Legos will eventually start to show up.
Well,
No,
'cause
but I have
we've-
I've like very Lego very specifically for me. I can narrow it down. So like, I've got you probably up here. My storage is up there, but like I've got all the NASA ones that are very high detail ones, like the lunar lander and the Apollo rocket and the all those types of ones, and then I've got a bunch of the Star Wars bigger ships like UCS A-wings, UCS X-wings, the Millennium Falcon, that kind of stuff. And that
So you got the A-wing.
yeah, I did get the A-wing.
Are you going to get
I couldn't
the
not.
gunship?
I'm not going to get the gunship. The proportions look wrong to me. It's very strange looking.
Agreed.
If you put a minifigure in it, it doesn't look like the gunship sizes are. They're not. I know why they did it, and it's because the gunships are also supposed to be able to carry loaders, and so they merged two animations of the gunship into one.
Mhm.
But like if you look at Yoda and the clones standing in a gunship, the clones hit the ceiling and Yoda is like halfway up. And if you put a clone in this gunship, the clones are not even halfway up. So it looks very wrong to
I
me
agree.
aesthetically, and I'm not saying it's bad. And if you are a fan of that era, I think it's cool, and like you should get the gunship because you'll still love it. UCS models are always lovable in that way. It doesn't meet my personal aesthetic for the shape and size of it.
That's totally valid. I thought it was a cool. I'm like, oh, cool, they're gonna do that, and then like I see it, I'm like, it just doesn't work for me. I also don't have any of the UCS stuff, so it's like
Yeah.
because I've just been like, for me, it's like if I'm gonna go UCS, I'm gonna do the Falcon, and until I cross that threshold, I'm kind of good. So for me, like that interesting mark of like, oh, it has to be 1,000 pieces or more. I'm like,
It's a rough figure. I'm not gonna like, oh, it's
Yeah.
900 pieces. I'm not gonna buy that one. But
998 ghosts.
I mean, even if they did a UCS
Land speeder.
Mando, Landspeeder, I might consider. But they redid the Mando ship that's out now. That's 1,000 pieces as a UCS. I'd probably scrap my current one and rebuy, because I like the UCS aesthetic personally. And
No, it's the little plate and stuff. It's very.
I've come
it's his
to
adult line. Yeah.
finally be more picky in that specific one, and that allows me personally to like say no mega constructs. I can't, right? But
Yeah.
like then, the Revelations toy line is still pretty small, and so I could like get onto that,
My
But
thing was.
I know that you guys both collect wider range. The point of that Lego story was that I try to define things very small. So like I have my two lightsabers, right? I have the one that I built and I have Luke's, and I'll probably get Cal's, probably. But like I can very clearly define it to the characters that I have a very deep connection to, right? And like I love Invincible, but that's my Invincible non-comic collection right there, right? Like I've got the two statues that I really cared about. I've got one Battlestar Galactica thing right there. And like I'm trying to whittle down to a very the amiibos got out of control because they keep making Zelda ones,
But you kept it to just the Zelda.
but I
ones.
only have
yeah.
the Zelda ones, right? The expansion though of the like, I know you both collect wider ranges. I mean, looking at Ken's shelf, he's got, let's see, Star Wars, Ghostbusters, Transformers, Marvel, Batman. I can't see what that looks like, a toilet seat.
It's Tron. It's an identity disc.
Oh, it's an identity disc. Yeah. So like, then I started grabbing these Revelations one. I've got a box full of Star Wars TVC figures. I've got a box full of the credit collection figures. I've got a box full of Black Series figures. I'm cleaning out my office. I'm going to have a bunch of shelves over here. For you two that collect wider ranges, where do you find a way to stop being a completionist about it, right? Because I have a full set of wave 1 of Revelations. Bam, done. What's going to happen when wave 2 and wave 3 and wave 4? Like, how do you... This is more of a mental podcast, I guess, than about toys. All of a sudden, I don't know what happened and how. How do you choose? What's your? Because you just started Origins, Kit. You said you got into Origins.
I did. I got a lot of Origins, but not. I've never really been a completionist. If there's an Origins character that I don't care about, or like multiple versions of He-Man, right now we're up to at least 4 different versions of He-Man just in Origins.
Revelation Wave 2 is
there's
going to
the-
get a new He-Man.
Yeah. I don't need every version of He-Man and Battle Cat and every repaint of Evil-Lyn. I've never actually been that sort of like I want an Evil-Lyn, but I don't need every version of Evil-Lyn. I don't need every version of He-Man. So basically, I just get the figures that I want, which is an awful lot of Origins right now. But and the ones that I can find. Some of the earlier wave stuff seems to be pretty easy to get. The later wave, like after wave 2, it seems like it's much harder to get the Origin stuff, but I'm hoping that just means that as more product makes it to America and hits store shelves, that'll sort itself out. Because the wave 1 and wave 2 stuff came out last year, so I'm assuming that's why. That and the fact that they keep putting out the basics He-Man and the basic Skeletor, so that those are always on the store shelf, so that kids who want to get into it can
Your stuff's more alleviated
still get
too,
the basic
'cause
characters.
You let your kiddo play with your Origin level stuff, and I assume other
Oh,
toys
yeah.
of yours.
I do have some higher end stuff that I try to not.
A lot of it.
That I try to keep boxed up. Yeah, but for the most part, I feel like toys are to be played with, and I very much am in agreement with Toy Story 2, and that like you shouldn't leave stuff boxed. You should open it up. You should play with it. And so I try to let obviously my son is a baby. I can't let him have like small little accessories and stuff. But like my daughter's 4, so she's perfectly old enough to play with Origins and the accessories and stuff.
Sure.
And if something gets broken, whatever, that's what they're for. And she's having a blast. I'm having a lot of fun playing with her. So I'm certainly not going to like buy these things and put them in a hermetically sealed little container and put them up on the wall and whatnot. So I mean,
like
if it's something that right, if it's something that's expensive and going to be hard to replace, then
Like a lightsaber.
I'm just not going to have it out where
$200
I'm just not gonna have it
lightsabers.
Right, I'm just not going to have it out for her to play with until she's older. But I mean, for this stuff, the Origins figures are like 15 or 20 bucks each, and they're actually fairly sturdily built. They're designed to come apart, so like you can pull the arms out and swap arms and swap heads and stuff. So, which I actually think is a pretty good idea for kids' toys.
Oh yeah, I mean that.
Uh,
I remember to this day, like the best part of Connects was like I could build a Enterprise and then blow it up and then rebuild it. Like any toy that can come apart without breaking on purpose and be sturdily like reconnected. Like, oh, the arm comes off, but the arm's built to come off and go back on and come off and go back on without
right.
breaking down over time. The ones that had those little tiny things that keep them, the rings that keep them inserted, and then you pop them 3 or 4 times and they've worn off, versus the ones that are more rounded and like they push into the space and
Ball
they come
and
out more
socket.
easily. Yeah.
I also think that the Origins toys are just they're sturdier and more they're designed more with kids in mind to be played with, and like Star Wars vintage collection figures are really not. They're much more fragile. But luckily for me, my daughter doesn't care at all about Star Wars, and so I don't need to worry about her wanting to play with any of that stuff. So she's pretty much all like Dora the Explorer, Masters of the Universe, Ninja Turtles. That's pretty much Donkey Kong. That's pretty much what she's into.
There's definitely, it's funny because when you had the question of like, how do you guys limit yourselves? I was thinking about like being in both of your homes and thinking about the different, like Kit's very much like, oh, I don't collect Star Wars. I collect Kit Fisto. Like, and like, so it's like, he's like, I've got like every Kit Fisto figure that's come out, I've probably got it. But aside from at least in that scale, like he might not have every 3 3/4 scale Kit Fisto, but he has a couple, and the ones that he likes, he's like, well, I don't need the aquatic armor one, but because I didn't like the way that one looked. So Kit's very much the
I want
leanest,
to be clear that I
smallest.
have every Kit Fisto figure, and, and that is the only figure that I keep sealed. I have every Kit Fisto figure both sealed and it's still in package.
So you have 2 of each.
I do, at least. I actually have more than 2 of some of them.
That's fair.
A tangent on that. Do you have a sealed Kit Cloud Kicker cereal box toy that came in a little plastic bag? Did you have that one?
I do not have a sealed one. I do have the toy, but it is not sealed.
Okay. But Kit's always, to my memory, he's always been more minimalist. Like he's like, no, I do love Star Wars, but I'm gonna collect, as far as the toy side of it, I'm gonna collect very specific niche stuff to keep it tight, to keep it lean. And he's like, oh well, I'll have I love Terminator. I'll have the box set that has the head that light up eyes, but I'm not gonna have all my old Kenner toys and go back and get them and get the new NECA line. He's been the like more just niche stuff. Whereas like I'm on the way opposite side of the spectrum, where it's like I collect far too many different things, lots of a wider spectrum of things, and you're more like, okay, you're in the middle. You're like, okay, I'm gonna get these because I like these, but you haven't gone like you said, you're like, well, I can't get into Mega Constructs because that's too much, and I agree, it is too much. But also with all this fervor for Masters of the Universe, I'm like, I want to get back into it, but I think my favorite line is already done, and now too expensive for me to kind of go back into it. So the idea of going small, like the Lego scale, and going like, oh, I can get a little flocked Panther with
Very cute.
like, and he's flocked like that. That's awesome to me. Like you
And he fits in
I
a
love
box
that.
you could put away if you don't want him on a shelf.
Yeah, or you can also just put him on the shelf with the thousands of other things, of hero clicks, of plushies and all the different stuff that I like. But also too, like with Kit, like I shared in the group chat the multiple versions of Tila in the reaction figures. And it's like, I don't need the Green Goddess version. I don't need the Faker version. I just
Kit,
need Tila.
Kit, you might have moved me off of my Revelations collection here, Kit, because the idea that like I love the Revelations aesthetic. I love how big the figures are. I love all that. But like my love for it is that I would put it on a shelf. Open or unopened, I haven't even decided. They're still closed because I haven't decided, right? But like they're going to go on a shelf. The kids haven't watched it. They're not into it. But these figures are the same size as like the Star Wars figures that I gave them to play with. They could mix them. They can match them. And they're look much more like what a kid would want to play with.
Oh, the reaction stuff?
Reaction ones, yeah.
Yeah. Even the Origins one. The reaction one's probably more my
The
aesthetic
Origin
than
ones are
Origin
are
ones.
the like 5.5 inch
okay.
scale. So they're the
bigger.
Origin ones
They're-
they're much larger than a Star Wars 3 3/4.
Right. So
And
the reaction
they're
ones are what
shorter.
size?
The reaction ones are 3 3/4. The ones that can link
Are
to.
those the ones,
Tilas,
Ken, that you
those
were
are-
just saying are expensive and out of print already?
No. These ones
I
to
don't-
me are a little more expensive than they should be for what they are, but they're for an
Yeah.
adult collector, because they're like
Right.
15, maybe $20, and I'm like, it's essentially 15 to $20 for
Oh yeah, they're like
a
$10 for a box of 10. No, $10 for a box of 12. Sorry, $120 for a box of 12 figures. Wow.
Yeah. And so depending on which one, you can probably find some of them a little bit better and stuff. These are definitely more in scale with like the classic Kenner. They're actually, that's the purpose of the reaction line, is to be in
Kenner
line with the
size.
classic Kenner style stuff. Yeah. It was like
Okay.
5 points of articulation, minimal accessories, but very, very playable. But it's also the design to have them on that old style card. And that's part of the fan collector side of it. So I think that they're good. Mine are actually the what's known as the classics line, which is very, very much geared completely towards adult collectors. Like it was like I can show you those too at some point. But
And
as far
expensive.
they were like easily $30 plus at the time of release.
Yeah.
And then you're also and secondary market, it's unseemly now. But as far as like how I keep my stuff, I've definitely been like with Marvel Legends, I tried to be like, oh, just the Spider-Men, but I'm like, oh, but I need a couple villains too. And then the bleed starts, and they're like, well, you definitely had Darkhawk in an issue of Spider-Man, so I guess I can pick up Darkhawk. Oh, well, I remember that time Nova was in that one story. Nova can be here too. Hey, you know what? Sleepwalker. I remember Sleepwalker was also in a lot of Spider, and just the bleed happens. So I'm here now amongst all
Yeah.
the stuff that I try to keep it in certain, like I can't be completionist anymore because
I have
if you're
that's my problem, as I have more of a completionist arc. And so like I grabbed Cal Kestis, and I was like, well, if I have Cal Kestis, I need the Inquisitor. And he also fought a K2. And he also, and it's like all the bleed started to happen there for
Yeah.
completing the game. Like getting the Inquisitors, getting the Stormtroopers from the game, as long as it said it on the side of the box. And the Mandalorian started to do
okay.
that for me. The Mandalorian stuff started to do that. And I looked in the box the other day, I was like, this is just a Stormtrooper. It just says Mandalorian on the side, but it's just a Stormtrooper.
Yeah.
And why did I buy, and
Well, because
then
you needed the Death Trooper credit collection one, and
that's
there
true.
you are.
I did that. I have all the credit, and I pre-ordered all the new credit collection just because I didn't want to miss it. But like, you know what I also did? I went out and found the 2 things I was missing, and I pulled them all in from the garage to see how massive it was. I have in box all the original Micro Machines Action Fleet stuff.
Nice.
Everything.
I definitely think, yeah.
And like, but I look at it and I'm like, the more fun the thing that I remember is like playing with it. Do I want to unbox all that?
I think it depends on the product because even to Kid's point saying like toys should be played with, there are some that he still keeps sealed because there's times where it's like I have a Leonardo that I want to play with because I love Leonardo, like I love the Ninja Turtles, so I need him. But there is like I have let's say a Spider-Man figure who's on the classic retro. See, I think the one thing that they got us on too much was the classic carded retro stuff of like, oh hey,
Yeah.
don't you want this new Kit Fisto on a card from, it looks like it's Powers of the Force, but it's the new Black Series style. I'm like,
Sure.
that's where I'm like, you sons of guns, because now I'm gonna like one to open, one to put on the shelf because I love that classic card. It evokes when you see that green background on the
Yep.
peg, you're like, I love
I
that.
have the Kenner Boba Fett that I got from Comic-Con.
Yeah, I remember. Like there's certain ones where you're just like, okay, that just it triggers something in your brain. So like sometimes, and that's kind of where the credit collection gets me is like, oh, you guys,
Yeah.
you're giving me the same figures, but on a classic
The
card.
art that I like from the end of the movie. Like, I love that art style. That is the art. I even went and bought the Art of Mandalorian book because I like that so much. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, you're giving me art figures now. But like, for me being the completionist problem, right? All those things in box, if I put those on the wall, they're going to take up the entire room. There's so much stuff in that Micro Machines set. And like, then you add on all the Star Wars and the Motu and I'm just having I'm having a little bit of I don't know where to define the collection at this point because of adding in
Do
new
not
stuff.
do not go anywhere near the reaction toys then,
Oh
because
no.
like,
Well, I was thinking I
as you,
could get
as you
rid
can tell with the 5 versions of Tila, like
Yeah.
there's a bunch of reaction Motu figures, but there's
Yeah.
there's also a ton of other, like they have like Ninja Turtles, they have Planet of the Apes, they have classic like Universal monsters, they have Alien, they have Terminator. Like,
I think I
just
have
stay away
Alien.
from that, because if you
Well-
get into reaction, like it
Yeah.
will take over your office.
Well, the cool thing about the reaction is I could give it to the kids, and the things that I give to the kids I can't be completionist about. Right.
Yeah.
So like,
Okay.
they just have a smattering of 5 POA Star Wars figures, vintage series Star Wars figures. I bought a bunch of them loose. I buy ones that they get at the comic book store for like $1 or $2 from the Powers of the Force series. That's just like, if it's a play thing, then I don't feel the same way, you know?
Yeah, and I think it does come down to like limiting yourself, like you did with the amiibos. So you're like, okay, I like amiibos; they're kind of fun, but well, you know what? I'll keep it just the Legend of Zelda. Sure, they keep putting them out, but they put out like what, 1 or 2
Now
in the
it's like
last
2 a
2 years.
year. Yeah. Now
Yeah.
it's down to like 1 or 2 a year. It's basically
Yeah.
one with every new game.
Yeah, or
Like, kind
re-release of In Time or whatever they're not Ocarina. No, Link's Awakening. They did one for that, and then they also did one for
it's
Skyward
basically-
Sword. So
it's basically per
Yeah.
game now.
yeah. And so it's like, I think if you got into like, say, reaction, if you're like, oh, I'll let the girls play with this, you're also not going to be getting, well, I need to get one of every Tila. Like, no, you need a Tila and a He-Man. And maybe you keep a carded He-Man for yourself just because like, oh, I want a carded He-Man. But the thing for
Yeah.
me is like with those, as much as I like them, He-Man doesn't belong on that type of card. It should be the red art. Like I want that. That's where the origins kind of hits for me, because it's like I think you can see her right here. I'll just go ahead and grab her on camera for you guys. The audience at home can just take us for our word.
Oh, look at that. Yeah. She-Ra. Retro play.
Yeah, she's got to have this red card. Even though, here's the thing though too, Tila didn't come on this because she was part of her own toy line, but I still want this classic card. I want this type of, which is one thing that I think they did great for a lot of these retro lines, is they gave you that old aesthetic that was appropriate.
The vintage figures are expensive. Look at this. This is crazy. And if you just eBay like lots of loose He-Man figures, it's not good. Not good pricing.
Don't go onto eBay. Go to join a collectors group on Facebook, and you'll be able to find better figures for cheaper.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
that's a good tip for all the people.
I'm not saying that all of the vintage figures are cheap by any means, but like you can find them cheaper than on eBay generally.
Cool.
But yeah, and as far as like my collecting, I do try to limit it when I think we all have to find a barrier. Otherwise you're just like, okay, at what point is it too much? And I'm probably right there. And I was looking through stuff recently, like, okay, I need to purge some of this because some of the MCU figures, I think it's tougher with lines like Marvel Legends where they're like, oh yeah, you want to get the whole line to build the figure so that you can build that big, awesome looking.
They do it, man.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's like, yeah, I want the Kingpin for my shelf, so I've got to buy all these figures, but now I still have this character, Puma, kicking around. I'm like, yeah, I know he's a Spider-Man character, but I don't care about Puma, so it's time to let him go. Yeah. But for He-Man, this answer was for me is like, scale wise, I can have a few more of these, and I don't have to fill up another bin, or another 2 bins. It's 1 bin, and I get to build a little bit, and I have a flocked Panthro.
The Revelations figures are really big.
Yeah.
Like,
and it's I mean, I they're definitely good, but also it's for right now, it's a limited scale. Also, you're not being too meticulously completionist, because you're not like, well, I need to have the Comic-Con Scareglow. They're gonna release a Scareglow, so I'll have him on my collection.
Sure.
But I don't need to have that version. So it's like, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if it becomes impossible to get the Faker, then maybe I figure it won't be. You know, one of those things that happens with toys now, thankfully, for me personally, thankfully, for Kit, maybe not so thankfully, is that stuff sometimes is impossible to find or instantly sells out, you know, and we've complained about it before, but it's become a thing for me that's like, oh, cool. I don't need to collect that then. Like, I can stop. Yes. I can stop with that entire toy line because I can't be completionist about it, so screw it. You know?
Yeah.
It's a valid point.
Well, it wasn't the topic we were hoping. What's your... Okay, Kit, you got to tell us real quick before we all go about your Castle Grayskull, because it's... as much as we're talking about like how to limit, I think that's a thing you should not limit, and that's so cool because you get to play with it with your daughter.
It is cool. So as I mentioned, my daughter, when I got back into Masters of the Universe this summer, I was kind of watching some of the cartoons, and my daughter got into it, and she loves He-Man and Masters of the Universe cartoon, the Filmation version, and she loves the Filmation She-Ra cartoon, and we've been watching those. And I started buying the Origins toys, and we've been playing with them. And the Origins line, which is the 5.5-inch scale, that's very much like the 80s, the 80s, right? The 80s scale, but with more points of articulation. They came out with
a 5-inch scale.
Yeah.
Okay.
They came out with a Castle Grayskull playset that is not exactly the same. They didn't use the same mold. It's not exactly the same
tooling
overall as the 80s Castle Grayskull, but it is very, very similar. It's basically exactly how I remember it, but like they made some improvements. It comes with the Sorceress, so we got a Sorceress. It came yesterday while she was at school. I got all the stickers on. I put it together, and it was ready. She knew it was coming, so she was really excited when I came and picked her up.
Nice.
She was excited. When we got home, I took a video of her. It was down in the basement. We keep it down in the basement so that my young son, my baby
Does he
son,
eat it?
cannot get to it, and she played with it for an hour. She loved the little elevator that takes people between the first and second stories. She loves the trapdoor that you activate by turning the throne that the sorceress sits on. She loved that. She loves that the little story about where you've got the half of the sword that comes with Skeletor and the half of the sword, the power sword that comes with He-Man, and you put the two halves together and you stick it in the hole in the drawbridge door, and that opens Castle Grayskull to let you in to learn about all the secrets. And she
Cool.
was like, she loves the little clasps on the side so that like because it folds up, it opens up so that you can play with it, but it also is like kind of like a carrying case, and you can close it to save space and whatnot, and has a little handle on it just like the original.
Can you
And
fit
she
extra
loved
figures
that.
in it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And she was like opening and closing that all night. She thought that was a great thing. This thing, most of those features, most if not all of those features, were in the original. The guys who designed this back in the 70s and 80s did a really good job of making this toyetic.
They really
And
did.
like, yeah, like there's a lot of
Watching
fun
that,
play features.
watching the documentary about how they made those toys before it disappeared from Netflix, the most impressive part of that was how much they were willing to commit to Grayskull, and how that guy was like, "This is not right," and eventually just sculpted it himself. And they were like,
Yeah.
"We can't build this. This is massive." It's like, "No, we have to build this."
I,
Like,
I
you don't
like that part
understand.
when the guy was like, so and granted this was for for reference, this is them talking about prices in the 80s, which obviously were totally different than prices now.
Sure.
But the guy was saying when they were designing it, one of the guys was saying like that's going to be $20 at retail. Nobody's going to buy that, which like in retrospect is kind of hilarious because
Well,
I know that they sold
$1980.
lots and lots of these. Right. I never had one of these as a kid, but I knew lots of kids who had. This was a very popular playset
Way
with
easier to
kids.
afford. Way easier to afford than like the GI Joe stuff later on.
Oh yeah,
You know.
Yeah.
yeah. Even now the MSRP was $75, which I thought for as big as it is and as much as you get wasn't that bad. I
I mean,
thought that was very reasonably priced.
easy calculation says that 1980 $20 is just $30 now. So you got ripped
Really?
off. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I certainly don't feel so. I feel like this was worth every penny.
Yeah.
And we're gonna
Oh,
get a lot of play out
hold
of
on.
this.
I didn't hit the right button.
I was gonna say that sounds
$66.
Okay.
that sounds more
That's
in line.
reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is the
I would
thing about
spend
this too is, like,
$60 on my kid to have that toy. Come on. If they're into the rest
Yeah.
of the toys,
and the box art is beautiful. Like
Yeah.
the
It really is.
the fact that I mean, it's one thing I've with some of the bigger Lego sets I've received recently, like I did the Ghostbusters Firehouse and the Spider-Man Daily Bugle.
yeah, you bought both of those, didn't you?
Yeah, the art on the box is really nice and really like, but this was from a different era of the like, oh, everything's a painting. Let's just pay. It's kind of similar to movie posters nowadays of like, we'll just Photoshop the heads together in a kind of pyramid shape. It's fine. Whereas like back then you had painters like Drew Struzan, and they were doing like these box arts that were just like these mythical battles. Like the Transformers were the same way, where they had like this is a giant battle scene in space where half the Autobots are coming this way and half the Decepticons are coming this way, and it's so cool to see like them harkening back to these old styles. And I think that's another great little, I mean, emotional nod for the fans like Kit, who, like he says, he didn't have it, but now he gets to have the joy of reopening it as a kid, but also have his kid there too. It's like, man, I envy you, sir.
Man, Origin stuff is expensive compared to reaction figures.
In what do you mean?
I was just
It-
looking
that-
at the prices for different Motu series here of toys. You've got the
Oh.
Origins, Reaction, and Revelation. And I'm surprised at how close in price Origins is to Revelation figures.
Yeah. So up until recently, the MSRP on a normal figure was $15. And I think that Mattel actually raised that a couple bucks just like within the last couple weeks. And then the deluxe figures like the battle armor damage He-Man, those were $20. And a lot of those are going for, like, if you look at Amazon or something, you're going to be seeing reseller prices where they're much more expensive. But yeah, I mean that's that, and the Revelation figures were 20, right, for a
Yeah, the
standard.
Revelations were 20 standard,
yeah.
and then more for deluxe, which they find a lot of ways to make most of them deluxe.
Although I will say, like, I feel like when you compare, maybe that one isn't the best comparison, but if you compare the stuff that I collect, which is like it's $10 for a Star Wars, a 5 POA Star Wars 3 3/4 inch retro figure,
Yeah.
or it's 13, is it still $13 for a vintage collection
I
figure?
think they're $13.
I feel like for a couple bucks more, you get a lot more
$14.99 now.
plastic. Are they? Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like you get a lot more plastic, and a lot sturdier plastic with the Origins figures. I feel like the value is better for the Origins figures than it is
It's the
for
mold. It's the mold
the
versus
vintage
the
collections.
size, right?
Yeah.
Like the mold
and
of a vintage
I mean,
figure is
the
very
Origins,
articulate.
yeah, and that's true. But like the and the Origins figures have way more articulation than the old class. Not the I want to stop saying classics because then it becomes confusing. The 80s figures. The 80s figures just had 6 points of articulation. They had the normal 5 and then the waist. These have like elbows, wrists, the necks and the shoulders, and then the hips are all much more. They're closer to ball joints than the old figures. Like the old He-Man, the 80s He-Man figures just had like 180-degree shoulders, but like these have ankles and knees and the really weird mid-calf rotating thing. But like they are fairly articulated. The Origins figures are fairly articulated. They're much more so than the old 80s figures.
Yeah.
The vintage.
It's the thing is you can say vintage because that does count, but then people are like, wait, Star Wars?
But yeah, I know it's especially when we're talking about the two properties, it becomes even more complicated. But like I keep trying to say, like the classic Motu figures, but then like there was actually a Motu Classics line that came out that started like 10 years ago. So then it becomes confusing as to whether I'm talking about the ones that came out in the 80s or those. And so yeah, it's just sort of I need to tune up my language.
For Andy, I just shared a picture in our group chat. You have 3 different He-Men.
Oh, there you go.
The one on the left is the Origins one, where it's more of the vintage style, but it is, as Kit said, about probably, I'm guessing about 12 points of articulation.
1, 2.
On the far right, you have that
yeah.
vintage one. The far right is vintage, so you have just those up and down arms, and the center is the Filmation Classics one, where it's like,
okay.
It's more of a modern.
I was like, that's not a Revelations figure because he looks way different.
No, that's the Classics line.
It's just about the same scale as the Revelations line, I think.
Correct. Yeah, right. That's about the same size.
Yeah.
But yeah, it looks like Kit's counting the points of articulation.
I think that there's 16 points of articulation
16.
on Origins. 2 wrists, 2 elbows, 2 shoulders, 2 hips, 2 knees, 2 mid-calf swivels, 2
Boot cuts.
ankles.
Oh.
The waist swivels, and the head is a ball joint.
I see.
So I think by my count, it's 16
That sounds about right.
on a typical standard figure.
Right. Wow. Cool.
And
Yeah,
then
I'm looking at the back of
ones
my.
from the 80s. The ones from the 80s had hips, shoulders, neck, and waist.
Right. So it's
So
one
they
extra
were
point.
6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm into it enough that I'm considering what to do. I grabbed the Rev figures because I really like the aesthetic, but now I'm reconsidering. And thankfully they're holding their value, so I could resell them for what I bought them for. It's not like I'll lose any money having grabbed them, but maybe the way is to introduce them to She-Ra and He-Man Filmation and see if they're into it, and then we can grab some of those. I don't know. We'll see.
What's that on Tubi? You
Now,
said?
No, Stars?
So, Yeah, so Stars has them both. I don't believe that they're on Tubi. Stars has them both, and Amazon recently. I signed up for Stars because Amazon had a promotion where you could sign up for 2 months for 99 cents a month. So that makes it very easy for me, and we can both. It's a lot easier to just like turn on the Roku and watch it than it is to fish out the discs and
Yeah, that's why
crank
I
up the Xbox.
digitize all my discs, and that way I can just
Yeah,
server it to myself.
Smart.
yeah.
All right, so next time we'll be able to talk about Visions.
At least.
Yeah. We didn't
Yeah.
talk about the Mando episode of
Oh,
behind the
wow,
scenes.
yeah.
So we'll talk about that maybe. And maybe some Cobra Kai won't be up then. But
No.
you know, maybe some toys.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll have had a revelation about some toys. And my office will be cleaned up. I could give you
and we'll
guys a
see
tour
what-
of my office.
We'll see what our reaction is to those figures. Hey, you threw in the there, buddy. I'm just following your lead.
One pun. Well, you gotta have a third pun now.
But it's just a comedy of three. I'm waiting for Kit to come in here with silence.
I don't know.
I'm
sorry.
We laid it out there. You had origin, but that's okay.
Or I mean, he
okay.
could have even gone with the Kevin Smith in action.
Podcast at wewergamers.com if you want to shout out anybody and anything on this podcast, or hangout session as I like to call it, because that's really what it's about. It's not really about podcasting for me. It's might as well record us talking and see if people want to listen to it.
And see if they might hear something like, "Oh, hey, I didn't know about that. That's cool
I
to
didn't
hear."
know I didn't know about the stars thing until Kit mentioned it at the beginning, actually. And I was like, oh, well, that's easy. Just grab it from there. Watch
And
that.
hopefully, also, if you guys want to hear more of at least Andy and I talking about, oh god, what was the last episode? Oh, we did RoboCop and Terminator, and we did.
That's not out yet, but it'll be out soon.
That's true. We do have a
and,
Heroes episode up though.
Heroes,
on,
yeah, Heroes.
And Gentle Giants.
I don't know why you'd want to hear about Heroes, but you want to hear about us talking about Heroes because, yes,
We had an experience.
we had an experience, and you should listen to it. Anyway, so those exist. We were gamers, Tangential Giants. Thanks for joining me, guys, and hanging out, because this is the best part of my weekend.
May the force be with you.